What's up, SMITE fans? It's Trelly here, and the SPL playoffs are just around the corner. June 1st through June 4th, mark your calendars. The top team from each division automatically qualifies to Masters. That leaves us with 6 teams left. They'll play each other in a double elimination bracket to determine seeding going into Masters. 2 best-of-5s every day, 4 days, all live for you to see on twitch.tv/SmiteGame, and we can't wait to see you there.
We appreciate all the support that you've ever given us, and go Cog Prime.
And I want to make sure you get your trophy here as well, man. MVP, Sino, and his heavy, man. Make sure you hold on to it for me. MVP, raise it up for him, man.
It's just so incredible. I'm so happy. And I've always wanted to tell my parents that I finally won this tournament. So Mom, Dad, I finally won Worlds.
Feels like I'm in a dream. I haven't woken up yet. Hopefully this dream never stops.
Splice are going to be your Season 5 World Champions! This is their moment! Untouched, unscathed, bow down to your kings! The Camelot Kings, champions of the world!
Good morning, SMITE fans, and welcome back to day number 2 of the SPL playoffs and Path to Masters. We have a full weekend of SMITE, best of 5s all weekend long, all to seed up our teams moving in to the Masters event happening later on this month. We can take a look at our bracket to see how everything will shake up this weekend, what you've already missed so far, which was yesterday, our underdog team's potential. Gilded Gladiators, a 3-1 win over the Styx Ferrymen, notching themselves a pretty great start to this tournament. The Eldritch Hounds finding a 3-1 over the Jade Dragons as well. So both of our qualifier teams up into the SPL have now been the ones to find their first wins in the Path to Masters playoffs. They will now face off for the Gilded Gladiators against the Atlantis Leviathans a little bit later today. And the Camelot Kings and Eldritch Hounds will be your first matchup of the day to see if the Hounds can continue their streak. And same for the Gilded Gladiators, see if they can find themselves another win. This time it'll be one against one of their divisional opponents, at least throughout the regular phase. Remember, it is a double elimination, so the teams that lost yesterday, the Dragons and the Styx Ferrymen, not out yet. Just waiting to see who they're going to be facing at the end of these matchups today. And those will be the ones that we play a little bit later on tomorrow. Remember, it is best of 5 all weekend long, 2 sets every single day to keep going for our June 1st through 4th Past Masters playoff. I'm J-Mac. I got Mifflin joining me here on the desk to help me jump into our second set of the day. Eldritch Hounds, a big win yesterday for them, 3-1. Camelot Kings haven't had a chance to play just yet. This will be their first matchup of the event.
And the Camelot Kings are in a weird spot right now, aren't they, J-Mac, where it's a team that reigning world champion comes into this year with a whole lot of high expectations and lives up to them for the first, I believe, 5 sets of the year. And then since then have been struggling a bit to find their identity, find how they want to play the game, or if they've already found it, executing on it, perhaps, maybe the larger issue. I still think the Camelot Kings are a very strong team. I still think they've got a lot of potential, but all of a sudden it's not every matchup I'm voting 9-1 Camelot Kings, right, like we used to at the beginning of the phase. I expect them to either stick to their guns and play the style that we had seen them establish throughout the regular phase so far, or they could try and shift things up considering the last couple of weeks just have not been suiting them.
Yeah, it's been a very rough patch for the Kings, at least in the second half of their phase. Remember, starting off 4-0 to begin and then going on a 1-5 afterwards for their last 3 weeks. So looking for a big turnaround win here are the Camelot Kings, trying to bring themselves back up, give themselves a good leg in this tournament. And what better person to talk to from the Camelot Kings than their jungler, CaptainTwig, standing by for our pregame interview.
That's right, I got Twig standing by, and I got to start with what they were talking about, right? Rough into the first phase for you guys. Last time this had happened, actually kind of very similar seeding-wise for you guys. You had kind of proclaimed it was a slump. At that time, there was a roster change. I don't expect that that's going to be up there, but what's been going on with you guys, and what have you kind of done to maybe reset coming into this week?
I'm not sure. I think we just try to learn what we can from every loss. You know, that's the only thing we can do when we're losing. It's not a good result, so we're learning. Scrims have gone a little bit better lately, but that's not really always necessarily going to correlate to game day. So, you know, we'll see.
As long as they've been going better, but you haven't been winning all of them. I feel like every time I've ever heard the phrase where we've won all our scrims, that's the downfall of there. You guys still have high seeding, though, right? You're still one of the, I think, inarguably best teams in the world. A lot of the, like, meta has kind of been shifting. The playstyle of a lot of these teams have been shifting along with it. The Hounds specifically are a team that it's felt really fun to watch them grow. What do you see being the biggest challenge about taking them on today?
The thing with the Hounds is they're just a good team. They've got good players in every role. They're hungry. They want to get better. They want to prove themselves. None of them have like necessarily proved themselves at a really high level before. And I think the challenge with them is just adapting, not being overconfident, and just kind of giving them the respect while playing, you know, your own game.
And again, for the way this tournament works, like best of fives that you're going to be playing in today, not foreign for you guys at all. In fact, Worlds, you just kind of ran through everybody. Didn't matter how long the games are going to be. Does there anything that the Kings have to do different when you're preparing for a longer set, or are you guys just taking it the same way?
We just have to play our game. It's not. We have to adapt well. I think as long as we don't get too emotional between after losses or after bad things happen during wins, then and we just like look at the game objectively. I don't think it's any different with the Hounds or in a best of five. We just have to, you know, stick to our plan.
Play your game, play it well, and I'm sure everybody at home is excited to watch that. Thanks for your time, man. Good luck in your games, and we'll throw it back to the desk.
I think bringing up the point of the best of fives is something that we don't really talk about as much, especially with some of the more veteran teams, the ones that have played in the league for a long time. They're used to tournament styles, being more in this best of five format. Even with our newer teams, though, Myth, I mean, you look over at the Eldritch Hounds, a couple of players who have had some SPL time, some players who have had some high-level competitive, at least experience as well. Maybe no strangers to best of five, so maybe that fatigue, that level of being able to stay in this game a little bit longer as these sets do go through, wears down on some teams maybe a little bit more than others.
And one of those teams likely would be the Eldritch Hounds, a rookie team this year, freshman year in the league. Sure, they've got a few veterans with them. Ducky, of course, has been around for a good long while, as has BennyQ, L Chuckles, their coach, a veteran coach. But when you look at the new talent alongside them, Oathhh, VaporishCoast, and even Quig, these are guys that probably aren't very used to playing these longer sets, high stakes, drag-out battles, war of attrition style of game. I imagine, though, that the Eldritch Hounds are feeling very confident. It's really difficult to see any sort of other mentality for them, considering the set that they had played yesterday. A very convincing win from them, aggressive stylings. They'd stuck to their guns from the regular phase, and it continues to work as the stakes start to raise. So I have been very impressed with the Eldritch Hounds. I think any of the fans at home, or maybe some of the analysts or armchair analysts at home as well, would have probably projected this team to do pretty poorly for the first phase. Generally a freshman year, qualifying in from the SEC, that has been the trajectory for the majority of teams that have taken that pathway. Not the Eldritch Hounds. They've broken the mold, finding a slow start to the phase, but have since then really picked up their pace and maintain it going into this playoff event. In particular, I do want to shout out Ducky, because Ducky is potentially the most veteran player on this team and has had a whole lot of discussion around him. Back on the Valkyries or teams of the past, Obey, everyone would say, look, it's not a team that wins very often, but Ducky looks pretty good. Ducky looks pretty good. And, you know, he was given that leeway the entire time, in spite of having one of the losingest records in the SPL. I believe it was him and Wowie tied for that record. But already this phase, Ducky has nearly doubled his win column for the entirety of his career. He has taken that stigma away from himself and has found a team that is willing to play around his style. The Eldritch Hounds, they're a squad that I think you have to keep your eyes on. It's very exciting to watch them play, because the narrative of on any given day they might just beat you has been applied to teams like this in the past, but maybe has never been as true as it is for the Hounds.
I mean, they've taken 2-0s on some of the bigger teams in the division as well, or just even in the league in general. I mean, they took a 2-0 against the Camelot Kings at one point after taking an 0-2, lost them prior on in the season. They've been able to find some wins against the Six Ferrymen in 2-0 fashion as well. I mean, when you look at this team and you talk about new teams up in the league, qualifier teams, you know, we look in the past and we see teams like Scarabs Valks. That was a name that was kind of almost tarnished with the you're going to have a guaranteed lower win column record there. Often 1, maybe 2 set wins over the course of a phase. this is a team that has more than exceeded that kind of level of expectation. Even if you just take immediate win-loss into it, I mean, this is a 5th seed team, which is wild to say considering the talent that is on both sides of the divisions out there. So I think the Eldritch Hounds have impressed fans, analysts, and everybody alike just for the level of performance they've brought through. Ducky's been able to really be a shining beacon for this team as far as maybe communication has gone for these guys, being able to recenter and refocus them as well. I think Oathhh has had one of the best breakout performances for a rookie coming into the SPL in such a long time that he has become one of the hard carries of his team. Whether his slash line says 2-4 or 14-4, this man has always been one of the ones who has been really controlling the pacing of the game, especially for his squad.
Yeah, I mean, even just take into account the last set that Oathhh had played, right? Let's break down slash lines, and I know slash lines aren't everything. 9-2-7 on his Nemesis up against the Jade Dragons, 10-2-5 on the Quang, also the Jade Dragons, and then 4-2-7 up against the Jade Dragons on the Fenrir. Just phenomenal play. When the Eldritch Hounds are rolling, it's because Oathhh has started off with aggression. Generally, it's mid and solo that Oathhh likes to put his attention towards because he's got a rising beast over in the dual lane holding it down on his own. VaporishCoast has also had just a breakout performance for a rookie. The Penta Kid has played at a whole lot of competitive levels of SMITE. He's been in the SMITE Console League. He's been in the Minor League. He's been in the Challenger Circuit. He's done it all, and finally given the opportunity to play up against the other best ADCs and Hunter players in the world, he's walked up on them, taken solo kills, forcing Jarcorrr in a tower in the past. I mean, we saw that clip. Jarcorrr got the better end of him, but that was a fight that one auto attack could have been the difference maker. VaporishCoast is, for my money, the Hunter that is trying his best to replicate like peak Panda Cat. He wants to be the guy that people are talking about. He wants to be the playmaker for this team. He wants to get aggressive, and maybe more so than any other Hunter in the league right now, he's looking for solo battles. He wants to box you, and it looks good when it works. And even when it doesn't, if you're getting aggressive and you're forcing people in a tower and you die later on, if you build enough of a lead just by denying minions, it simply doesn't matter. And Coast finds himself in that position often.
I like the shout to peak Panda Cat there because whenever you look at the play style of Coast and then really just the behavior in-game afterwards, one thing that we always saw Panda Cat doing, he gets a solo kill. What's he going to do? Sit there and taunt you, laugh at you after you've passed down? Coast is doing the same thing, whether it's a solo kill or whether he did 99% of the damage and someone comes over and takes the last, or even if someone else does 99% and he gets the last hit of damage there, he's going to come over, he's going to laugh, he's going to let you know that,
if
hey,
you're backing,
you're
he's
in the
gonna
dirt.
laugh.
Yeah, doesn't matter what. If VaporishCoast is in a winning position, he's going to throw a laugh out there. And I think that's a lot to say for a player like this, coming up as a rookie in the SPL and being able to stand up to world champion Jarcorrr, to former world champions and Hunter players, and being able to continue going toe-to-toe with these guys out there. This has been a squad that has impressed and now has to go up against the Camelot Kings once more. I think for the Camelot Kings, a team that Mifflin, we're really looking for something out of these guys. We're looking for maybe a consistency, whether that be over on the right side of the map with variety from the jungle of CaptainTwig. That's where a lot of the struggle has been for this team in the last few weeks of play, where we've been seeing a lot of good things over, at least in the duo lane. BigManTingz has probably been the most consistent player on this team.
Yeah, Tings has looked good, as he always does. One of the best role players in the league. That was something Aggro had coined back when he was casting here, is that BigManTingz is always doing what you need, and then sometimes he's going above and beyond, lifting up the team with him. I think you're right to identify one of the pressure points for the Camelot Kings right now, because I don't think the dual lane is doing poor at all. And Genetics hailed as one of the best players, or at least the best support player in the world during his Worlds run. I would argue he has still been playing up to that level. So it is the soul lane in the jungle that has been struggling for the Camelot Kings. CaptainTwig needs to find some picks that he can consistently see success on. He can't just be the guy who dominates on Vamana and then has quiet performances on just about everything else. Variety as well. It's always been a running gag for the Camelot Kings. If someone's going to die, if someone's going to feed early game, it's going to be Variety. And it didn't matter previously because mid, duo, and jungle were all performing at such a level that they could rotate over, alleviate pressure, or create pressure on the opposite side of the map to punish teams that are trying to abuse Variety. But when the jungle and the solo are starting to struggle, that has a knock-on effect on the rest of the map. So I'd like to see that jungle-solo combo look just a little bit more consistent here for the Camelot Kings.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of the harshness has gone towards this team, has been that right side of the map for the Camelot Kings. And going up against Ducky and Oathhh might just be one of the more difficult matchups for them in a while, just because of how flexible both of those players are in their god pool. Oathhh being able to play the variety of assassins out there, and then Ducky even sometimes playing some of the assassins himself. We'll see what does get drafted up by the Eldritch Hounds and the Camelot Kings. We jump into the picks and bans for game number 1 here in day number 2 of the playoffs in our first set of the day here. Eldritch Hounds, Camelot Kings. I wonder where some of the shakeup will go through, because we are playing on the 10.5 bonus patch, meaning that we have a couple of nerfs that have come away to some of the top soul lane gods, but have still been seeing a lot of pressure and at least favoritism thrown towards those top gods. The Hercules, the Vamana, the Guan, still seeing picks and bans allocated towards them, even despite some of the nerfs that have come their way.
Yeah, just incredibly powerful picks, I think, that are consistent and generally plug and play. That's what you see from the top of the meta. The things that you can lock first in overall are plug and play characters. Is there any composition where you wouldn't want a Yemoja? Is there a single composition where you wouldn't want a Marty? I don't think so. And so those gods tend to rise a little bit more so than the rest. Seems as if the Eldritch Hounds, the Camelot Kings, will be keeping with the standards that we'd seen throughout the phase. This will leave available a couple of priority picks. Could be Guan that makes his way through bans here. Other notables, maybe you look towards some mage selections. The Nox seems to have fallen out of favoritism, a bit out of support, especially with some of the changes to her ultimate. It does a little bit less damage reduction on enemies hit. Damage dealt reduction, excuse me. But I think still an incredibly strong initiator that doesn't necessarily need to get her hands dirty. There are certainly some things you need to keep your eyes on here.
So for the top 3 bans on both ends, Hercules, Yemoja, and Horus from the Eldritch Hounds, Camelot Kings take away Vamana, Martikros, and Merlin. Surprisingly, eats a very early ban. Opens up the door for a first pick Hachiman. We saw a lot of first pick Hachimans yesterday, Mifflin, but maybe not a whole lot of success out of that hunter necessarily, at least in that first pick selection, but it leaves open a few options now for the Camelot Kings, notably the Guan you were mentioning as a possible thing for the solo lane. Hebo, something that CaptainTwig has gone to multiple times in the jungle as well, but hasn't had the best performance on that Hebo in the last couple of times played.
Last time we saw him play Hebo, he was 0-9. 0-9-2, and one of the lowest damage dealers on his team, in spite of the game going, I believe, 30-some-odd minutes. So maybe stray away from the Hebo pick here. Guan won't argue against it. If you want to go towards something like that, I think fits this composition very well. Instead, it's the Rom first selection. I don't think there are too many hunters available to the Eldritch Hounds that would facilitate a double hunter composition, so that's surprising that the Camelot Kings would elect to grab theirs so early in the draft when they could have grabbed maybe Guan Aphrodite or perhaps Serket Aphrodite, which has been, Serket that is, one of the highest valued assassins in the game right now. Does immense damage, has great clear, can deal with some of the sustain that the Eldritch Hounds are now considering for themselves. If that Hell gets locked in, I'd almost just say it would be a misplay almost to just leave the Serket available here. And we know that it's within the god pool of CaptainTwig. He's played it twice or thrice, maybe not the most impressive slash lines, but looking at the composition as it stands for the Eldritch Hounds, Serket counters just about all 3 of them. Hachiman, one of the safest hunters in the game because of how his ultimate works and how he can, displace himself or retreat towards his own tower. Doesn't necessarily matter if you're riding away taking true damage the entire way, right? And there's immense burst potential on the tail end of that. Instead, the jungle selection, Bakasura. You can have a hard time chasing out Guan or Hachiman, but Hell's certainly susceptible, at least throughout the early game. She can cleanse the slow, has additional movement speed in the rest of her kit. Self-healing has taken a hit here in 10-5. Bakasura's not poor by any stretch of the imagination, but just feels like there were better answers available.
So Rom, Afro, Bakasura for the top 3 of the Kings. Hachiman, Guan Hell, top 3 of the Eldritch Hounds. And some flexibility, maybe, potential for the Hounds. We have seen Hell go over towards mid a couple of times more recently, a little bit less so in support, but not sure if that's really what I would consider a BennyQ style of god for the Eldritch Hounds on that Hell pick, so maybe one that could be going over towards Quig. Top round of bans starts to roll through. Huang, after a 10-2 game yesterday, Camelot Kings don't want Oathhh to have that pick yet again. Got off to a real hot start in that game. In fact, was able to help snowball the game to, I believe, a pretty quick 20-some-odd minute game, 26, I think.
Very fast.
Was that game there. Started off 4-0. Got shut down, came back, and immediately got a triple kill in the very next team fight afterwards. Not a pick that you want to give it over to a powerhouse that way. And then Agni as well from the Camelot Kings. Opposite end, a little bit of focus over towards BMT with that Baba Yaga pick. Still has been a top pick for a lot of these mid laners there. I gotta imagine since the Bakasura was picked up for the Camelot Kings, you think maybe Serket could just be something that the Hounds go for themselves? I mean, there's healing with the Aphrodite that you could shut down with that kind of a pick.
Yeah, but Serket feels really bad in the Bakasura directly. So in late game team fights, when you're pushing and it's a 4-1 split, you don't want Bakasura locking down half of your kit with his Regurgitate, right? So could be difficulty there if he is considering the Serket selection. Of course, it's not all about your direct jungle matchup. You don't often get that opportunity to fight until the very latest portion of the game. But I wouldn't hate a pick that Oathhh had gone towards very recently, his most recent game. Maybe a Nemesis here could suit the Eldritch Hounds very well. Has a phenomenal direct matchup into the Bakasura. Also strips away one of the primary strengths of Aphrodite. If she's making one of your carries a little bit too tanky to deal with, what if he didn't have those protections? Nemesis brings that answer every single time. Has good ability to deal with Rom and Rom Ultimate. If you're concerned about getting sniped on retreat, press 3. There's not really a whole lot they could do about it. There's not really a whole lot that the Camelot Kings could do about it at all right now. It's Aphrodite Kiss to deal with Nemesis Shield. That is the only bit of hard CC available to the Camelot Kings as of now. Hebo, the final ban for the Eldritch Hounds. Could be for BMT, could be, well, it's really only for BMT. You don't really see this Bakasura going anywhere else.
Yeah, I think the days of Bakasura solo are probably well and past this at this point, so maybe just trying to limit BMT's god pool. And it hasn't been the largest of god pools. We looked at some of our mages and some of our mid laners, at least over the course of this phase. We're seeing 10 to 15 different god picks over the course of it. BMT's been on the lower end of there. It's only sitting at 8 different god picks over his time through, so taking out a couple of those ones. Cerberus for the Camelot Kings, something that Variety has gone to a few different times, has had mixed success on it. In fact, in the 4 games that he's played so far, sitting at a 50-50, but has been very susceptible to being camped very heavily over on the right side of the map. But where the success has come from the pick is when Variety is usually the one kind of making the aggressive plays, teleporting over towards duo lane, going for early ganks. Discordia now for the Eldritch Hounds, and then a hover over of the Serket, and it will be locked in for the Hounds.
It's just a blanket strong pick. It really is good at dealing with the Aphrodite and the Rom. You've got decent gank potential into the Cerberus. The only concern is that Bakasura matchup. And if that is your only concern, I think just fine to go ahead and ignore it. This is interesting. I would be very surprised to see this from the Camelot Kings. It's something we've seen into Serket previously. The classic, I'll beads and just drop ult on my own feet, and at times just about perfectly to stun Serket the second she comes out of her own ultimate. So there is a bit of counterplay there. The cripple as well for self-peel. You deal with 50% of Serket's kit. But Poseidon has just been in an ugly spot recently. Likely not the lock-in. Tiamat as well. These are concession picks, 100%. BMT, he's been limited in P's and B's. He's gotten one of his favorite picks taken away from him by the Hounds. Got to fall all the way down that tier list, straight to the Tiamat. That's tough. It's a very slow start mid lane mage. Takes a little while to spool up some of that damage. You need about 2 items completed before you're able to really get things rolling. So we'll slow down the Bakasura in turn. Bakasura, a god that wants to get involved generally around level 3, 4, especially at 5. Might have to wait a bit, at least towards the center of the map.
So it will be the first time we see BMT on the Tiamat this phase, at the very least. I mean, when we look at the 8 gods that he has played so far, 5 of those have either been banned or picked up by the Eldritch Hounds, that being the Baba, Marty, Agni, Merlin, and then Discordia pick up there by BennyQ right at the tail end. So let's see something new now for BMT and the Camelot Kings. How's maybe the curve of this game for the Camelot Kings? I mean, you got a Bakasura, surely that's something that can get involved a little bit early. Aphrodite in those early 2v2s could usually maybe tip the scales a little bit in favor. Is this a Camelot Kings game that has a strong enough early game to persist and get towards more of that late game gear that we're used to seeing them?
It depends on the performance from CaptainTwig and how present he is on map. If Bakasura is there playing spoiler to the aggression of the Eldritch Hounds, I think that the Camelot Kings have got enough that they can keep their heads above water, resist the Eldritch Hounds throughout the early game, and then transition to a very strong late game team fight. Once they're allowed to group up as 5, some of those issues with initiation that I brought up with the initial 3 picks are shored up a good deal thanks to that Cerberus for Variety out of the soul lane. I like Tiamat in the late game, Hater in the early game, so you generally want to wait a little bit on that pick as well. So Camelot Kings stick to their standard. If you run back any death segment we've had with the Camelot Kings for the last 2 years, it's they don't necessarily want to do too much in the early. It's more so about what they can get accomplished, grouped up as 5 as a team. Whereas the Eldritch Hounds, on the other hand, their composition is very strong. for finding picks. That's generally what Serket affords your team is if anybody is isolated on the map, rotating through the jungle, they're just going to die to that initial burst, especially after that first item. Serket is very good at that level 5 to 6 mark. Otherwise, they've similarly got great sustain, great ability to fight in the late game. It's just about surviving that initial burst of damage from the Camelot Kings in the 5-on-5. If Bakasura is finding value with Regurgitate, it's going to be pretty difficult for Hell to fall back and start resustaining her team, or Guan Yu to do the exact same.
It really feels like either of these teams could tip the scale just based on how the jungler maybe gets a start out here. If CaptainTwig can find a couple of picks on this Bakasura, could get things really spiraling out of control in one lane. If Oathhh can continue to go on the tirade that we have seen with him over the last few matchups that he has had, could be a great startup for the Eldritch Hounds. Again, neither of these teams facing elimination today, but definitely getting themselves a nice little step up towards Masters. In day number 2 of our playoffs, we kick off game number 1 with Goremizer and Trelly.
Thanks so much, J-Mac and Mifflin. That's right, it's game 1, it's Gore, it's Trelly. And of course, Trelly, it's Doug alongside us to watch one. I'm actually really curious about this set in general, mainly because the Hounds have been picking up the pace. Kings maybe losing a little bit of their pace, right? It's been a rough end to the phase for them, to the point where even Twitch chat is leaning a little more in favor of the Hounds here. And I want to dive in with you, especially looking at the drafts. How are you? I mean, like, just looking at the Kings and how things have been, where their draft is up against what the Hounds have brought into this. I mean, what do they need to change? What do they need to do this game to try and cement some success?
Well, I do think the desk highlights it pretty well. It is the right side of the map usually becoming the issue here for the Camelot Kings. I mean, BigManTingz, in my opinion, has been playing lights out. The duo lane has been fine, just sort of treading water, which is what you would expect from Yark and Genetics. Not really feeding, not really fragging, just sort of sitting back, and that's what you'd expect from them. But Variety has been getting ganked a lot. I think probably Ward Vision could be a key here, trying to keep this Cerberus not even ahead, just even. Could be a big deal here for the Camelot Kings. And more importantly, CaptainTwig not getting picked in the early. I think that has been an issue for him. Taking 1v1s when he doesn't have to, sticking around towards mid camps and, you know, taking unnecessary fights. As a Bakasura, you're not going to have too much early pressure, especially up against the Serket. You're essentially just some auto attacks where Serket has plenty of CC, plenty of movement, plenty of damage. And that is going to be a limiting factor in you're trying to take those trades. So that's something to keep in mind. Just trying to not feed, I would argue, in the early game. That's a big issue here for the Camelot Kings as of recent. And I know it's crazy to say considering some of the runs we've seen them go on. But it's just, I think, little things they need to iron out. I would argue, you know, their bad streak still looks top half of the SPL for sure, which is usually the conversation. They're really down on themselves. It's because they're used to standing up at the top of the world. They're still looking real solid whenever they can play up to their standards.
What was it? Their slump, and that is a self-prescribed slump, described slump from the Kings, was 3rd place.
Yep.
In phase 3 last year. Like, I mean, you got to be doing something right if that's the worst case scenario for you. I also, and it just kind of clicked when I saw the duo lane get into the matchup. Is this the first time we've actually gotten to see Hell and Afro in the duo lane against each other? It feels like we've seen one or the other pretty much the entire year, but like actually having both healers there could be a big deal. Oathhh could be a big deal here. Never mind, gets a little bit of damage on Twig, but the tower line too close. And with the taunt already down, not much he can do about it. Pressure. I mean, you look across the map right now, the Hell out-pressuring the Afro, or at least assisting in out-pressuring the Afro. They were up against the tower line there for the Disco and the Serket. The only one who wasn't pressed up as far as he could was Ducky, who was meeting in the middle of the map, which is going to be expected when you're up against a Guardian. This matchup, though, in the duo lane, it catches my eye. I mean, it feels like Afro is just not going to have a good time. Once Cleanse is up, who cares about your stun anymore? And Hell has deceptively good damage in the early game.
This lane is going to be a snooze fest until the junglers get involved. Every bit of poke will be healed off. Every bit of damage is just going to be resustained. There is very little kill potential, again, until those junglers decide to get involved. Oathhh is here, but he recognizes as well that there's just going to be a lot of healing coming through on the side of the Camelot Kings. And Twig is just going to mirror that rotation. Not look for a gank, but look for the cooldown buff. So, yeah, I do think you're right that because Hell just has double the abilities of everyone else that isn't a stand switcher, Quig and Co should be getting lane pressure, but that doesn't necessarily translate into kills. That is just, hey, we clear the wave a little bit faster. Their health bars are still going to be relatively low in comparison because Genetics just has such free healing. It's not a skill shot. You literally just have to use Lovebirds, and as long as you're kissed to Jarcorrr, he's going to be getting that sustain. It's just going to be essentially a wet noodle fight.
Oh, Ducky. Maybe in a little bit of trouble. Variety doesn't get the stun, though. And that might be the turnaround. Ducky wants to fight a little bit. Gets the Taolu Assault. Good taunt from Oathhh. No ults available on the right-hand side of the map yet. So a lot of bark, no bite. And I guess that goes doubly for Variety.
Because he's a dog.
Yeah, that's...
Triply.
Triply. Oh, yeah, you're right. There's 3 heads there. You got it. Man, that's on me.
He does have 3 mouths to be able to bark. And in this case, I think you're right. Ducky would have loved to try and scrap there. He took a lot of HP. And this is what I'm talking about. CaptainTwig is just, he's just got auto attacks. That's all Bakasura brings until that ultimate comes online. If you don't have the movement speed to try and run someone down, it's not easy to find those ganks, even with a wing shard proc, which is what we saw there. Didn't end up netting much, but at least showing some pressure over on the right side of the map. Now Regurgitate's available. Now Oathhh has his ult as well, so maybe we see some action. Probably towards the left side of the map would be my guess, just because Variety, he's got to be warding up. He's got his teleport. He already used it, so he's not going to be able to get his full regrowth online just yet. Yeah. You want to be sitting back, though. You want to make sure that you're not susceptible to a gank, because so much CC immunity here from Ducky and Oathhh. They can dive the tower relatively easy. And you're just going to be jumping away using that Stingy and Torment, which Oathhh can immune with his Death Bane. I mean, the knockup is just so easy to time. It's not a great matchup. Variety's probably going to spend the majority of his lane pretty much where he's standing now.
And honestly, like you said, given the history of what the Kings have been encountering the last few weeks, probably not the worst case scenario. It's like, hey, I'm sitting back, but I'm not dying. Nothing's going wrong. That's the ideal. Keep the boat righted until a little later on. Farm game. Look, no first blood. Whenever you start to see, I want to say anything over 500 gold feels like one team's doing something right, and that's where the Hounds are right now. Just shy of hitting 1,000 gold. Might be able to look for a little more. Twig cut out in the jungle. Taunt good from Oathhh. Takes him down to half health. Doesn't commit with the ult, though. That doesn't mean that Oathhh is playing patient either. Still waiting. Looking for the jump onto Variety. Goes for the ult. Tosses him back. Misses the taunt, though. The Bastion really taking the hit there for him. And so, a nice investment from the jungler for the Hounds. Just not able to find the payoff.
You know what? I can't be a hypocrite, because I said interesting. There was never a universe where Variety dies there. But whenever I see this start from Oathhh, the Jotun's Wrath, I always say, man, you've got all this CDR. Why aren't you firing off your ults on cooldown? And that's exactly what he's doing, right? That didn't force anything. But at the very least, he got it off cooldown to get value from this Jotun's, as opposed from like a Transcendent start or something like that. So I do like that sort of play. And now, Variety did take a little bit of extra damage. He's not healthy enough to try and defend his blue buff, and maybe they're able to find the dive here.
Well, there's the CC immunity you were highlighting earlier. It's just like that, and he walks out. The archers are doing some damage, but Oathhh, oh, he gets to walk out of this one, gets the kill, and no way he's going for the blue buff Twig. It's right around the corner. You need the healing, you need your mobility. It's a Serket. That's the cripple field. That's a return kill. A little bit of greed from Oathhh. And it goes 1 for 1.
I want it to be known that Oathhh saw Twig. He's like, I'll just get the buff and I'll jump away before Regurgitate. No, he did not jump away. The cripple goo landed, and you're not allowed to jump when you're in that goo, unfortunately. Oathhh did lose his beads trying to dive Variety there. I mean, successfully diving him, grabbing the first blood, yes, but did not have any way to leap away. So that will be a return kill there for CaptainTwig on the Bakasura. Going to help out. You're losing a bit of pressure. You're losing your blue buff, sure. Actually, I don't even think he got the blue buff. I think he decided to jump away at the last second, but it doesn't really matter in this case. You lose your life. You lose that momentum that Oathhh would have liked to create on that first blood. And I think CaptainTwig might have a leg in this race now. He's saying, hey, if I get a little bit more movement speed online, maybe I look towards mid. It's not like BennyQ has the greatest of escapes. Discordia's leap doesn't get you too far. And it is, you are invisible. But it's pretty easy to tell where the disco is, especially when you have giant cone auto attacks from the Bakasura ultimate. So definitely could be a spot to look towards. It's just difficult to try and gank mid laners right now. The lane is just so small.
Yeah. Plus the CC that's on the board could cause a lot of trouble. Speaking of CC, or maybe just causing trouble. Twig shows up over on left. It's a fight for the shield buff, won by the Hounds. That's going to be all she wrote. I thought there was maybe going to be another commit. Ults were coming back up, at least for Oathhh. It is back up.
Oh, the gank regank.
Maybe Twig is going to find something. Has the blink, has the ult.
He just wanted a roaming heartbeat.
And you know what? He put the fear in them.
Yeah.
And that's what matters most. They were, for a slight second, probably worried a little bit about Bakasura. But Shelly, they just go back to farming, which admittedly has been going in favor of the Hounds. You know, I touched on it earlier, but even with the first blood and the unfortunate fall of Oathhh, you're starting to get close to 2,000 gold here, just from neutral objectives and the one kill. Feels like a pretty massive win over a team like the Kings, who are known for their farm game.
Yeah, isn't that kind of wild? Like, usually it's just, hey, the Kings are down, but they're up in gold, that sort of thing. That has not been the case as of recent, especially here for the Hounds. I think a lot of that has to do with how well BennyQ has been able to farm. He's a level ahead of Tingz at the moment. And of course, hold that thought, Coast actually does get aggressed upon, uses that ultimate, and now scrapping on the right-hand side of the map as well. This is just fighting on all sides here. CaptainTwig ults defensively just to eat one of his own minions?
Well, Ducky's ult didn't quite get the stun they were looking for. Twig's ult got him a minion.
I don't think you got him anything, yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying, you know, painting in positive lights as best you can, and it still doesn't seem that positive. Maybe just a couple of moments thinking that he had some kill potential. The ult from Twig a little shy from locking down Ducky. Ducky likewise shy from locking down Twig. Maybe Twig is going to look for something else here, but without his ult, it feels like Bakasura loses a lot of his fangs.
Yeah, he is. The way I see it is he's not a character when his ult's down. That's what I always say. I'm like, all right, Baka's ult down. I'm not scared, right? I'm not looking in the jungle going, oh no, where's Baka? He just doesn't have that chase down potential any longer, especially this early on. Your movement speed is Golden Blade and a speed buff. When you're in that auto attack animation, you get a little bit slower. It's usually pretty easy to run away from the Butcher Blades. And in this case, just a lot of scrapping, which I love to see. I mean, yesterday the conversation with me and Dave was, it's quiet, too quiet, but that has not been the case this time around. Jarcorrr will be forced into the ultimate here, but he's taking so long. Wow. He's weak here. He's going to come down, but he decides to go early, and it's up to Quig to finish. He doesn't have the damage.
There's nothing to get him down, and instead it's Twig jumping in. Doesn't have the assistance necessary. Quig still alive. Genetics playing a little further back. Oathhh is going to go up onto the ult, throw Genetics away, but not find too much for it. Jarcorrr, I'm going to say, gets away with murder there.
Yep.
Should have been killed. And gets to go back to base at the cost of one ultimate.
It was a beautiful play, because you had two options. One, stay up in the ult as long as possible and wait for your team, or cancel it early, catch them off guard, and hope that Quig wasn't ready. He didn't have full cooldowns, was able to throw that Dark Stance one, but just did not have enough DPS, and that's the difference between a Hell support and a Hell mid. A Hell mid is easily getting a kill there, and maybe BigManTingz getting a little bit of trouble. BennyQ has to hit the Strife here. The CC not quite up, not enough cooldown, and Tingz lives to see another day, but does lose his beats in the process.
A lot of almost kills that are happening. Maybe another one here on Twig. Uses the ult in response. Look, sometimes the Strife hits and it's going to force you to play awkwardly, and now Twig's going to have to sit on the back burner for a little while. That's kind of what I was looking at. He went over for the shield buff, picked it up for himself. I was wondering if he was going to maybe use his blink, try to get aggressive, use that ult for something to create some pressure for the Kings. Instead, it's Oathhh deep in the jungle of the Kings. Technically behind an experience, but does not seem to care that much about that. Fighting Twig over the blue buff. But it is a very patient, careful fight. And Oathhh is going to fall back from it, but they're successful nonetheless. Ducky gets the blue. Has his ult, so he shouldn't be too worried about what's going on.
I keep just making myself laugh because Twig has been ulting defensively. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. Using CC immediately, you're just dropping the slow field. But it is kind of funny that his defense mechanism is, oh, I'm going to throw up on the ground and run anytime someone gets near me. And it's happened twice now. All the while, the Kings are making a pull onto the Pyromancer. No one is going to be even close. So that's going to be a free objective here for the Camelot Kings. And the Eldritch Hounds, they would have had an opportunity to try and pull the Gold Fury, but would have had to been set up immediately.
Yeah.
And they just did not have the opportunity to do so. Jarcorrr was always around. He had the snipes to try and dissuade that. So that's going to be an easy pull there for the Kings. And CaptainTwig gets to pick up a Runic Bomb. Usually when the Pyro's pulled this early, that Runic Bomb is used almost immediately on a Tier 1 tower. Let's just immediately go drop it, try and grab a Tier 1, try and equalize that gold or push it further in our favor. We'll have to see if CaptainTwig decides to use it anytime soon.
Sometimes I think we've also seen at least once or twice I'm going to hold on to this.
Yep.
And then we're going to get the next one. And then they're going to get the next one. And by the time we hit the Phoenix line, we're going to have 3 runic bombs in inventory. And good luck defending that. Who knows? We'll just have to watch to see where it goes. A lot of the interest I have in that play is that, one, we get to see something that the Kings are maybe more known for, is playing the map, forcing something to happen, despite the fact that the Hounds have a lead here. The downside is that they're actually, I think, more gold behind now after they got it than they were prior to. So it just shows that the Hounds, whatever they're doing it exactly the way it needs to be done right now. And a lot of it is the proactivity of Oathhh, right? Getting deep into the jungle. You see a lot of these neutral objectives, mid-camps, things like that going their way. And I think what we might see soon, maybe it's just a little bit of a fake-out, was a Gold Fury pull. Maybe it's a double fake out. They keep running around right inside the pit. They've got the vision from the Oracles. They've also got 4 members of the Kings on this side of the map. Maybe playing defensively. Shield buff. Coming up in just a second. Should be a pretty easy grab for the Kings. And I don't think Quig wants much to do with this. So Trelly, what felt like maybe a storm brewing. Pretty much everywhere, right? Every attempt that the Hounds have had. And it's just fallen a little bit shy. And despite the only phrase I can think of to describe it is attempted murders, but that's probably not the best way to say it. But despite all of that from the Hounds and from the Kings, it's still 1-1, 14 minutes in. And it's still hovering just around that 2,000 gold mark for the Hounds. But pressure from the Kings onto Coast immediately. Forces the ult, should help get them a tier 1.
Yeah, that's what they're looking for. And I think that, a lot of what the Hounds have been doing well has been, number one, just letting people solo farm. No one is babysitting Coast. Genetics is linked to Jarcorrr at the hip, and because of that, he's losing some farm, but he has some extra safety, especially when the Camelot Kings, they might want to fight this. It looked like they were being aggressed upon, but here comes CaptainTwig. Remember, he doesn't have his ultimate. Bakasura, with that ult's down, he becomes a lot less of a threat, so it looks like there won't be any more engage. But my point is, Coast has been able to pull ahead of lead just because of being left on an island. BennyQ opts to go for the Conduit gem, which means he's been able to get mid-camp control pretty much all game. I mean, Tiamat takes a while before she can actually kill those camps effectively. It takes you a while to stand there, and you have to cycle your abilities. BennyQ is essentially able to one-shot them with the extra minion damage from Conduit gem, and he's been able to farm up extremely well in the early game. Probably close to level 17 at this point. Definitely the highest XP in the game, and because of that, he's going to be able to hit level 17 just before anyone else. I mean, Tings is close. My point is, look at what happens when Variety rotates in. He's working on tier 2 defense at the moment. If he gets close to BennyQ, probably going to eat a lot of that damage. These tanks, Genetics for example, he's going to be 3 levels behind here soon as well. And that's going to be an issue once these mid laners start getting involved in the fights. If there are some fights to get involved in. The Gold Fury's been looked at many times, and once again, the Hounds are around it. Are they going to go for the pull is the question. Yes, finally some damage is being done.
I'm looking at the ward coverage, looking at the vision over here. Nothing for the Kings to do. Pyromancer's going to be starting up, but just like before, the objective gets burned quick enough that unless you were on the timer, you're not going to find too much. Instead, Twig's going to get aggressed on by Ducky. Genetics, as well as Tings, going to get some poke down onto Oathhh. Oathhh uses the mobility to escape. Ducky doesn't have the ult, has to use a blink, of all things, to get out of there, and gets it right before Twig's ult. So burns the Baka ult. Maybe at just the cost of the Pyromancer. Kings will secure that one, no problem. Variety. He steps forward, Shelly, but once again, they're not looking for the blood, they were just playing for the objective.
Yep. You get another Runic Bomb, this time Genetics to pick it up. Now the Camelot Kings are able to grab 2. But once again, unless you're using them, they're not going to be the biggest deal. And that's sort of been the issue. You can have 3 Runic Bombs, but if you end up getting pushed underneath your Phoenix, you usually end up just selling them.
Yep.
You know, like I need wards. Like I'm tired of this. So could be the opportunity here for the Camelot Kings to try and grab a little bit of a scrap here. CaptainTwig takes a lot of damage. Do you have the chase down though? Looks like the ambush is all up to Ducky. He has to get underneath this tower, and he will be able to catch him. The Runic Bomb was dropped for Peel, but it's not enough.
Burned the beads immediately. Now might be able to commit heavily if they want to Variety. It doesn't matter. Elsewhere on the map, they're going to get stuff done. Tier 1 in mid dropped pretty easily. And Trelly, look, 17 minutes in, that's the first tower that has gone down this game.
That's wild.
That's insane.
But what's also wild is Genetics has not left this lane. I mean, this Aphrodite said, hey, duo lane is duo lane. I'm not helping my team. I will be linked to Jarcorrr. He is the carry. As far as I'm concerned, it's been working out so far. Able to net a tower at the very least, but Coast still does have that 1-level lead. Able to finish the Executioner and the kin size. And for damage sake, seems to be doing pretty well, right? Look at the difference makers here. It's just Jarcorrr and Genetics have been linked together for quite some time. You're losing a bit of the value. Maybe if you're linked to CaptainTwig, you can find some aggression, but I don't think that's the call. My guess is the Camelot Kings said, hey, we're going to sit back for a very long time.
I'm trying to figure out what kills. Look, it's 0-0-0 for the slash line for everybody in the duo lane, and he's 5,000 damage above the solo lane. He's just. I mean, I guess it's you've got 2 people to hit over.
I think it's because of healing, right? Like the Camelot Kings are okay taking that poke because they can heal it off, so it does buff his stat numbers a bit, but doesn't seem like he's too worried. I mean, this is the safety, right? There's a Bakasura here. You're up past the shield buff, but you've got mounted archery. You just horse away.
Gotta be frustrated that that's the 2 interactions Twig is gonna have this game. It's like, all right, I got this guy. He's gonna have me on. Okay, never mind. He's on a horse.
Yep.
And that's happening on
both sides.
There's no real save haven for you. They did finally at least get themselves a second kill, right? 2-1, and that doesn't really tell the story, I think, of the way this game has been going. I mean, they have been looking for fights. It's been very cautious fights, or, as you had highlighted, healing. Oathhh might be in a little bit of trouble. But then again, he's Serket, has a lot of mobility, so he just gets to dash over a ward. A lot of investment from the Kings, at least numbers-wise, on the left-hand side right now. But again, Charlie, they're not getting too much done with it until these objectives come back up.
I'm just wondering why BennyQ just tossed the apple down Main Street. Just felt like it. There was no one there.
You never throw an apple down Main Street just for
fun?
I've
done it. I usually say, like, hey, this is a zoning ultimate. I'm going to chuck it out, you know, just because. Doesn't really seem like the smartest call, but maybe Benny's like, hey, I'm 0-0-0. I've got no fear. And surely I'm not going to get aggressed upon while my ultimate's down. He said, while the Camelot Kings going for a tier 1 tower and grab it for absolute free.
Yeah, they're going to pick that one up pretty easily. One of those runic bombs used, by the way.
Oh, Twig used it defensively when he was dying.
Right.
He just dropped it on his feet.
Let's pretend that it was used for the tier 1 tower. Let's rewrite some history here. Yeah, they get the tower. Look, Charlie, it's almost 3,000 gold in favor of the Hounds. This is a Fury the Kings might need to get to keep themselves, or get themselves into a comfortable position. But it's going to be dropped. Too much presence from the Hounds nearby, so the Kings back away. Pyromancer's respawning. So you have that opportunity, that capability to choose. Do you want to go for the right side objective, be right next to the Fire Giant? Maybe commit to the Oni Fury? Right now it's a commit to the left-hand side. I mean, you had mentioned it, Genetics. This might be the first time I've seen him and Jarcorrr not linked together. And it's only lasting a second. Immediate repull onto the Oni Fury. And started up by the Kings, already half health, and they're burning it pretty quickly. Jump in, Kings. Secure that one. Apple connects onto Twig. Oathhh needs to jump in. Tries to find his opposing jungler. Does grab him, but Twig drops his ult. Gets some damage out there, but dies in the process. Ducky picked up, thrown back. But he gets to dash through. 1 clean kill. 1 clean Fury. Kings walk away with the Oni minions, but without their jungler.
They do. One for Fury is not, and that's great. But what happens next is the question. Do the Eldritch Hounds immediately go for the Pyro? Yes. Teleport comes in. Variety is already here. He teleported in. If a steal comes through, the Camelot Kings are in a fantastic position. If not, still not terrible. It's just a Pyromancer at the end of the day. You just want to try and sustain and stall out as long as possible until your jungler comes back. But the Eldritch Hounds are smart. They want to engage, and Oathhh already to the back. Look how weak Genetics is.
I mean, immediately they shred his health bar. Snipes from Jarcorrr, but they're way too soon to get anything done. It's not going to set up much of a fight. Twig back on the board. Genetics is reset. Pyromancer goes the way of the Hounds, like you said. Not the worst case scenario for the Kings. More importantly, they didn't lose anybody else, although they did lose a pretty big relic there on Jarcorrr. But doubly so, it didn't open up a Fire Giant pull.
Nope.
That feels pretty good.
Yep, that feels fine. In this place, I think the Camelot Kings are just trying to farm. They did lose all their runic bombs, though. Genetics was able to confirm that Oni Fury with it previously. So it looks like the only one in pocket is now going to be for Quig for the time being. But I want to see how these Fire Giant pulls end up going. I mean, it's the Kings who are postured towards it at the moment. But you still would like Variety to hit level 20, upgrade that starter item, Twig, 2 levels before he's able to grab that starter. And of course, Jarcorrr is level 18 as well. These upgraded starters are really when you start to look towards Fire Giant. You feel a lot stronger fighting in the jungle. You feel a lot better towards your DPS. And it just doesn't seem like the Camelot Kings really have a leg to try and pull the Fire Giant, just because their burst is not incredible. I mean, especially without a Runic Bomb. I mean, the Eldritch Hounds have BennyQ, who can create a lot of CC, a lot of space around that objective, especially if you're grouping up. Throw the Runic Bomb in the mix, throw Oathhh in the backline, it could get nasty. So I'm thinking Camelot Kings are smart here just to farm this one out. In this case, the Eldritch Hounds are pretty confident with their late game by the way they've been playing, not forcing too much. It's only 3-1. There has been a lot of attempted fights, but not too much blood spilled. And because of that, wouldn't be surprised if we're stalling out just a little bit longer, maybe around 26 minutes. That's my predicted FG pull.
Here's the real question.
You didn't ask. You didn't ask, but I just wanted to give it to you.
Oh, well, it might be a little bit sooner. No damage from Coast and Twig, not enough. Forces 2 ults on the left-hand side.
Oh, the blink.
And it might be enough. Twig with the jump. Coast has to play it carefully. Can't win this one. The Aegis, it does so much, but not enough. Twig finally able to get a second on the board for himself and for the team. And now you've got 40 seconds to work with around a Fire Giant to try and push the Hounds into an uncomfortable position. Doesn't seem like they're grouped up for it immediately, though, Charlie.
Not yet. They're heading towards it now.
The reset.
Yeah, Twig's got a lot of time before he steps forward. But it looks like because of that pick, the Camelot Kings feel confident in their pull. It's still not going to be easy, though. Again, someone's going to have to track Oathhh. With Twig not having an ultimate, he can't do it very easily. And BennyQ has to get here, but he's in base at the moment. He's so far away.
Yeah, and Variety behind the frontliners. Quig, Ducky have eyes on it, and you had mentioned it, but Oathhh coming around. Fire Giant, half health. BennyQ gets the Strife, throwing a lot of damage into Variety, but trying to figure out where the pressure from the team is going to be. Fire Giant stalled out. Kings is so low, they just need to get back to him. Stun from Ducky is enough, and he finds the kill, but he trades out his life for it. Oathhh goes in with him, and they make the Fire Giant leash.
Snipes.
Snipes have to connect. Not going to find either target here. Oathhh and Quig able to walk away with barely any health. Fire Giant almost full again. And you've got Coast back into the fight. Twig drops his ult. Gets a little bit of damage out there, but Genetics is low. Variety halved. Twig half. Ting's still gone for 30. Benny put himself on the board, looking for a little bit of CC. Strife should be coming up soon. Who does he want to lock down? It's going to be Twig as the target. Forces the beads, and with a 3-on-1, they're going to find the jungler as well. 2 big kills for the Hounds and a great zone from Coast. A Fire Giant pull gone wrong. The Hounds now able to pick this one up. And without a soul inside, it's looking like a free FG.
Yep, they have plenty of sustain here from Quig. And it looks like Jarcorrr is not going to step forward. He had the opportunity to, but without snipes, without beads, did not want to walk up. So 25-30. Not bad here for the Eldritch Hounds for the first Fire Giant of the game. The lead is not so massive that the Camelot Kings have to be afraid and cower underneath their Phoenixes. Tier 2 towers certainly still could be defended here. But the Primal Fury is being pulled. Jarcorrr is already here. It doesn't seem like the Hounds are too afraid to step up. They can get here in time. Ducky's going to be the first one in, and he does have that cavalry charge to try and slow this down.
Apple finds Jarcorrr. What a great shot from Benny. Gets some good damage onto the carry. Should be healed up by Genetics. It's not an immediate jump and gap into. But they force him away from the Primal, pick that up for the Hounds, and Shelly, the gold is extending. About 4,000, just a little shy in favor of the Hounds. Power play for another 2 minutes. There's still a lot of towers on the board, all tier 2s, standing for both the Kings and for the Hounds. A lot of gold that could still be put in pocket, and a lot of work for the Hounds to do to try and get into a winning position.
Yep, all those towers are next on the mark here for the Hounds. Again, I think the Camelot Kings probably try and make a soft defense under tier 2. Maybe they just send CaptainTwig to split push. That's always going to be a smart call. At this point, if you use your ultimate properly, I don't think Oathhh should be winning that 1v1 handily without his beads, that is.
Yeah.
So because of that, CaptainTwig feels a little bit safe to push up, and it looks like the rest of the Kings are going to follow suit. I actually like this call. If someone goes to defend Twig, they're going to end up getting ambushed, and Oathhh is on the way. Will he get caught out is the question. No beads for 20 seconds, but it looks like Quig called out, hey, there's going to be an afro behind you. You should probably run away. and that's going to be a tier 2 trade at the very least. But how fast can the Hounds go in for this Phoenix is the question. Are they just going to base race?
Continue pushing. Variety's gone back to defend. It's a 3v4 on the other side. Twig goes in deep, drops the ult, immediately met with an apple. Forced to fall back. Otherwise, left side Phoenix for the Kings, half health. Variety trying to do his best to defend it, but not going to be able to. A couple of autos from Coast is all it needs. Now the Kings have to keep the pressure on right to try and find the balancing act for him. Ghost is low, so they can't go for the Titan. Right side Phoenix will get got, thanks to Jarcorr's damage and the healing from Genetic. So, Phoenix for Phoenix trade. That Fire Giant power play not working out as well for the Hounds as they would have hoped. Gold-wise, it's still in their favor. But map-wise, you're looking at a mirrored situation.
I just want to first say that I love calls like that. You know, hey, we lost Fire Giant. They're probably going to be lackadaisically pushing left lane. Let's just get aggressive, try and thwart this push. It ends up working out. I mean, losing FG and still grabbing a Phoenix for Phoenix trade is definitely worth it. Unfortunately, you end up losing your more important Phoenix in this case for the less important one on the side of the Hounds. So that's a bit unfortunate, but in this case, you've created a win condition for yourself. If the Camelot Kings get a massive stop here at the next fight, they can just push in and end. The Eldritch Hounds were already in that position, right? They had the Fire Giant. They were in the driver's seat. So making proactive plays like that to try and thwart the push here of the Hounds, I think is always a smart call as long as you can do it safely. And the Camelot Kings did just that. They lose some relics, sure, but getting that right side bird down is a big deal, and that forces the Hounds to try and push right lane now. They can't deal with mid. They have to try and push into these fire minions. All the while, Jarcorr's over on left dealing with fire minions of his own. Because your ADC's gone, I don't think the Camelot Kings want to do a full defense here. Probably just put up a bit of presence and let this tier 2 drop. But it looks like Jarcorr's on the way. Hopefully, the Kings can stall out, but it looks like that tower's dropping regardless.
Yeah, Coast, singular focused mind, knows exactly what he's going for. Oathhh pushes a little in mid, not a lot. There's a sentry ward that he's looking at, and that's going to cause him to play a little more cautiously. But the tier 2 on right, like you said, goes the way of the Hounds. Maybe looking for a little more strife on a Variety from BennyQ. A little bit of poke. Not too much to write home about, but it is the setup. You had mentioned it, fire minions pushed up on right, so the Hounds don't have to worry too much about them. Left side, though, the Hounds' fire minions themselves actually putting in some work at the tier 1 tower line of the duo lane. They're going to be pushing pretty far back. Eventually, someone from the Kings is going to have to deal with those. Could be the big opener. Around the Phoenix, Oathhh wants blood. Oathhh is looking for a kill. And it might be Twig, it might be a jump to the back line. Jarcorr is going to be the one sent back. And this might just be the easy pull for the Hounds if they take their opportunity. Jarcorr didn't complete his back, so it's still all 5 fire minions about to break into the base. Oathhh getting a little bit of poke on Variety. Twig's pushing up mid, fire minions on right.
Wow.
Now sent to deal with by Ducky. And Trelly, I thought we would have seen a Fire Giant at this point, but both teams playing a little too cautiously.
I thought we would have seen a fight. I mean, the Camelot Kings have, I don't know, 15 seconds before they're actually losing half health on their Titan for this siege. It's enhanced Fire Giant. I would argue the Kings need to go in. CaptainTwig is currently at a tier 2 tower in mid. The Eldritch Hounds notice this, so they go in for the pull. All the while, those minions are going to push forward. This is only benefiting the Hounds. How long this fight is stalling out. Now CaptainTwig is getting chased down. Where's the slow? The apple connects!
And it should pop just the right amount of damage. Beats down, and an easy kill. BennyQ even playing aggressively, gets a double as he finds Variety in the lockdown. Is there a triple kill for the mid laner? And then a singular pickup there for Ghost in the fight. 4 gone in the blink of an eye for the Kings. And the game for the start of this set, Trelly, going to the Hounds.
And you know what they say, Gore. You gotta look out for those flying apples. Everyone talks about it, and this case,
some dude was throwing them down Main Street earlier.
Yep, and BennyQ said, hey, he was practicing for that moment, because that opened up the door for this Titan siege. BigManTingz has the damage, but not enough. This Titan is going to go down. Triple kill for the Discordia, and that's just a beautiful play. CaptainTwig, honestly, wrong place, wrong time. I don't see why he thinks tier 2 is the place to be. Ends up getting picked for it. The rest of the team dies soon after. They had the chase down. There was a lot of movement speed on the side of the Eldritch Hounds. It was pretty easy to chase him down. I just don't see the reason for that play.
I assume for Twig it wasn't that great of a feeling, but visually, watching the apple tick up and seeing that burst pop his health bar
Yep.
it was cathartic.
We were like, is that going to kill? It looks like it's going to kill. He just pops. We're like, oh, that's definitely going to kill.
And you know what? Sometimes that's all you need. It's a big opener for him. They immediately, I didn't see what happened to the initial portion of Variety's health bar, but I saw what happened to the end of it, and it was not great for him. Just a lot of scenarios there at the end where it finally collapses. But the Hounds felt like they were kind of leading that game for a majority of it. And it's a solid game for them here in game 1. Low kill count, but a win's a win is a win. Now they're up 1-0 over the Kings. We'll see what they can do in game 2 right after this break.
right. Thanks to our friends over at Advanced GG. You can pick up yourself the God Slayer bundle by going over to Advanced GG and taking a browse through all of their selection through our store, but making sure to pick up the God Slayer Energy and Ice Shaker bundle available now or at Advanced GG. And make sure that you use code SMITE to get 10% off of your order on not just the Energy and the Shaker, but anything that you pick up from there over at our friends. Thank you so much for Advanced GG for joining us in Season 10 of the SMITE Pro League. And here in game number 1 of our second day, Eldritch Hounds found themselves a nice little win over the Camelot Kings. Though, Mifflin, this was not an easy win for the Eldritch Hounds. It wasn't a dominating performance by them. This was a slow bleed throughout the entirety of the game. 15 minutes in, we're sitting at a 1-1 even state of game. And it feels like all it takes is one team fight post 30 minutes for the Eldritch Hounds to run this one down.
Yeah, until the very last team fight, I couldn't have told you which way this was going to go because it was so back and forth. Objectives going either way. Phoenixes traded across the map. Just clean team play altogether. But one misstep from the Camelot Kings is what really cost them. Of course, you got to talk about a good bit of fighting around objectives that leads to, I believe, around a 3,000 to 4,000 gold lead for the Eldritch Hounds going into their last Fire Giant. But besides that, it's BennyQ all the way down for that last engagement. A phenomenal ultimate that makes contact with CaptainTwig, dives into the back line on his own to finish off Variety as well. That Discordia found a whole lot of value in the late game team fight. I thought the Camelot Kings had done a really good job drafting around the strong points of the Eldritch Hounds, though. They had got the anti-heal from Variety. Genetics brought a little bit of the sustain to match what Hell and Guan were doing on the other side. And you see that reflected in the team fights. Up until this very moment, this is the one I'm talking about. BennyQ from downtown slams CaptainTwig, gets thrown back in, and then makes the difficult decision to jump forward once more to finish off Variety in spite of BigManTingz, staring him down just inches away. Clean play, teetering on that knife's edge, but BennyQ makes it look good at 4-0-3 on the Discordia.
Yeah, I mean, jumping into that fight, there was a 4, maybe 5,000 gold lead at that point. Not even a Fire Giant around the waist of the Eldritch Hounds. That's just one small misstep by the Camelot Kings. Then funnels into an entire near team wipe by the end. Only BigManTingz left alive at the very end of the game to try and defend the Titan against 5 Eldritch Hounds. It's just not enough on the Tiamat. But 30,000 player damage by BennyQ this game on the Discordia. Really slamming those 2-1 combos on the Disco. It might be something to look forward to, maybe for more BennyQ play, because we haven't seen very much Discordia from him in the past. So not only a ban away by taking this away from BMT, but also a strong performance by him and the entirety of the Eldritch Hounds this game. Because, again, I mean, starting out very slow with these ones, the 1-for-1 trade over on the right side of the map, Oathhh getting a kill, under the Tier 1 tower and then immediately being returned back by CaptainTwig at that point there. So it would find at least a little 1-for-1 there. But then, as said, it did kind of stalemate, at least for a little while there. So for the Camelot Kings, maybe some things to potentially change up here in the picks and bans for game number 2, Miff. Was there anything, maybe any kind of glaring issues that at least to you on there that comes out, or does this one just come to more so that play on field?
I am not an Afro supporter. I'm not a mage supporter in general unless the mage is Nox. So if your name doesn't end in 408, I don't want to see it. Otherwise, no complaints from me. I didn't feel like either one of those compositions came out head and shoulders above the other. Felt like both teams had done a good deal of homework dealing with the giraffes. It really was play on field for the most part. That said, get genetics on like a Terra or something like that, and I think things could get a bit easier.
Yeah, it really does feel like every time that we see a lackluster Afro game and then a player goes to something like a Terra or Yemoja after, like, man, where was that in the previous game? Because that just looks so good. And I mean, genetics, is, as mentioned there by you, has definitely shown a very strong Terra performance over his career and even just at least in recent seasons as well. 60% win rate on the games that he has gone through it, but has looked good for the Camelot Kings. Picks and bans in game number 2. Hercules and Horus banned away by the Hounds. Kings will take away the Vamana and the Martikros immediately. And I'm wondering what change-ups the Camelot Kings make for their third ban if we see the Yemoja banned by the Eldritch Hounds, and we do. So Quig not maybe willing to first pick this god at the very least. And then a Serket ban by the Kings. Not going to let Oathhh have one of his primary picks, one that he's been able to find, not just for himself, but just across the league, has been such a hyper-carry pick for teams.
Yeah, Serket seems to be just one of the best picks out of the jungle right now. Has very fast clear, high mobility, and high kill pressure. So often able to just find that solo agent style of, okay, well, one person was out of line, and now they're in the grayscale. Serket brings that in spades. But I wouldn't say that Serket was the primary reason the Eldritch Hounds had won. I mean, it's 30,000 damage from the Discordia out of mid. It's about 30,000 damage from the Hachiman as well. Both of those two feel as if they were able to make it throughout the majority of the early game uncontested. A lot of those Bakasura ultimates were to chase out Ducky or were to chase out Oathhh himself. Wasn't quite as much presence in lane from CaptainTwig. Guan Yu and Aphrodite for the Camelot Kings. I've said this about Guan Yu, I'll say it again. I really like what he brings to the team, especially when he's flanked by another healer. Just the healing that he gives is nice. It's a good little boost, like 150 in the late game. Not bad whatsoever, but it's that CDR that it gives to your team. 1 second off of your cooldowns, and when you match it up with another healer, all of a sudden these heals are just rolling constantly, and it feels like it's so difficult to actually finish off your targets.
Hebo now being hovered for the Camelot Kings, and the question then goes to, is this a CaptainTwig Hebo, or is this a BigManTingz? To be determined, considering the last performance that CaptainTwig Hana was quite lackluster.
0-9-2.
And meanwhile, Hell Discordia for the Eldritch Hounds. So running back their composition minus the Guan Yu this time around, so let's see something new out of Ducky over in the solo lane. And I like the Odin ban. That's something that we saw picked up yesterday during a set with a lot of healers, a lot of immobile targets. Picking up this Odin as a counter pick, at least for Ducky. So going to be taking that one away, says the Camelot King, especially with all the sustain they have. That Odin would be a good answer to try and shut that one down.
I'm surprised that the Eldritch Hounds elect to pick up the Discordia again, as opposed to a Merlin selection. You look at all this healing on the Camelot Kings, feels like Merlin's one of the best applicators, barring like Thoth because of his ridiculous range of Divine Ruin. And of course, Discordia very good in that situation as well. But primarily, I think it's how unpredictable the mobility is of Merlin as opposed to Discordia. She leaps forward, creates that stealth pit, pretty easy for Guan Yu to lock you down. It's a slower dash as well. Whereas Merlin, a bit faster with that flicker, can avoid things like Water Spout, can avoid things like that Cavalry Charge a bit more easily. And just generally one of the higher priority mages. I mean, I did wax a poetic a long time there to say that Discordia for the most part is an A tier, whereas Merlin is an S. Surprising. Feed the hot hand, I suppose, for the Eldritch Hounds, and I won't argue against it. A performance like BennyQ just had should inspire confidence in his ability to play this god.
So now where does Oathhh go for his jungle selection? Because the Serket and the Fenrir, two of his top performing gods, have been taken away. Things like the Huang do still exist, but going into an Aphrodite, not the easiest task, though one that he did do yesterday to great success in his 10-2 performance, but sometimes it's hard to have a repeat.
Into an Afro
like
Hell and Guan? No, that seems real unfun for Huang.
I mean, it'd be the Hell on his team, but Oathhh will go back to one of his classics. It'll be the Kleena locked in, and then a Thor Hover, which has gone to Oathhh, but has also gone to Ducky. We haven't seen Kleena in the solo lane in quite some time, and probably don't imagine so. It seems it'll be Kleena jungle and Thor solo for the Eldritch Hounds.
I like what Thor brings to the team. Blanket statement, I think Thor has a great matchup into Hebo. The ability to just lock him down from offset of the fight, force him to either respond with beads or crushing wave defensively, which is just that golden moment for every Thor player when you're able to force that Hebo to lose out on the ability to just eviscerate one of your allies. And doubly so if you're playing tank Thor out of the soul lane. But this Kleena is a bit concerning for me into the Hebo pick. Kleena's damage takes a little bit of a while to channel. If you're not playing within the wall, you got to channel that Screech fully to get the full burst of damage. All the while, the silence doesn't apply till the last tick of Screech, meaning that Hebo's got time to just return damage to you. But now having the knowledge that it is Hebo out of mid, Bakasura locked in almost certainly for CaptainTwig out of the jungle, means that Kleena can apply pressure from walls a bit more easily. Won't have to be concerned about rotating throughout the map. And then in the late game, so much of Kleena's kit is just throwing out the ultimate from wall or screaming from wall. Very difficult to defend up against that. The strong composition for the Eldritch Hounds, lacking a bit in consistent CC. A lot of this game is going to ride on the shoulders of Ducky, and I'm not going to completely forego the idea that there is some flexibility here. It could still be Thor jungle with Kleena out of solo. You're right to say that we haven't seen that from Ducky recently, but there is potential of it. Whoever is playing this Thor needs to be hitting walls. They need to be hitting massive walls. They need to be connecting that ultimate, because otherwise you're looking at Strife from Discordia, a silence from Kleena, maybe some slows here or there, and one stun from Hachiman. It is a very CC-light composition for the Eldritch Hounds, which tends to lead itself to being very high execution. It's a team composition that, from ahead, dominates objectives. They are going to shred Gold Fury. They're going to shred Pyromancer. It's just establishing that lead and playing in the 5-on-5, the team fight portion of the game, going to be very difficult.
And then you look at maybe the opposite side here for the Camelot Kings. You got this Aphrodite to try and keep one of these players alive during these fights, make it a little bit more difficult to try and get into at this point. Wasn't the strongest performance, at least at the Aphrodite in game number 1. Just in general, we haven't seen a lot of success from the Afro support. But do you like the Afro support with the composition that's built around it? Having the Hebo, having the Bakasuras, both potential hyper carries to kind of link towards, and having that Guan Yu as your secondary healer.
Yeah, I think Aphrodite fits the composition. Would I have preferred a standard Guardian? Personally, yes. But if I were to see an Aphrodite, I think this is a great draft for it. Not only the Hebo and the Bakasura, I think the Guan Yu is a great link target as well. Worth noting that back off still is pretty decent burst. Has great stats on it, just baseline damage. So having Cavalry Charge immediately in the back off when you're linked to him for an additional slow on the tail end that's done. Great initiation, survivability for that Guan Yu to disengage after his initiation as well, or even turning your Bakasura into the one-man army or the Hebo into the one-man army. Very, very consistent win conditions here for the Camelot Kings. The only concern I really have has got to be their ability to keep their heads afloat throughout the early game. I feel like this Kleena and Thor can really get things started.
The Eldritch Hounds start off hot in game number 1. Can they keep up that streak, or the Camelot Kings find their fight back in game number 2? Let's jump right in and find out.
We'll see what their options are this time, Trelly. Options were to switch some things up. BigManTingz on the Hebo. Ducky as well, doing a little dance for us on the Thor. And I actually want to ask you about that in the Kleena. I tend to forget about Kleena a lot when I'm thinking about any of the assassins because it's just been a while since she's kind of been hanging out with us. How do you like her in this matchup?
Well, you know, in this case, I wanted to do a pun for you, but I think I'll wait a little bit longer.
Oh, man.
I do
love
think
me a good
that,
pun.
yeah, Kleena takes a bit to get online, and I think the desk highlights it quite well. It just... You're playing towards late game, and that is the difference maker here. You come out of the gate pretty much swinging on some of these assassins, like the Cirquette, for example, which just played. But Kleena does take a bit to ramp up. She needs some proc items to really get value out of that kit. And because of that, it's just a slower pace style of pick that we don't get to see too much from Oathhh in particular. For my money, he likes to get active early, right? I mean, I could just be wrong about this. He could, like, actually I hate fighting early. I just tend to do so because my team wants me to. But in this case, that's not really what Kleena brings. I am curious because Scream's been playing a bit of Kleena. Whenever we get to see him, he actually maxes the dash. We're not gonna know for a while, but at like level 6, I would like to check in to see what points he's putting in, because if you are channeling, you know, the first ability, the Scream does have some delayed damage. It's not quite as good for burst. That second ability is usually where people go when they're trying to get good burst. But that dash could also do some big damage if you choose to max it. So might take some time. I'm curious to see where that goes. But it is a pick that can work out. It's got tons of ability damage. If you're looking towards objectives, you know, Fire Giants, Gold Furies, etc., can really get burned through. But Tingz wasn't a bit of trouble there. Oathhh was forced into the beads, and BennyQ also had to drop him. So a lot of relics down. And also Tingz did blink. So, yeah, there was some scrapping going on in mid.
A lot of little fights. No blood. Tingz is back in base, so that might give a little bit of pressure over to BennyQ. Also impressed with Ducky right now. He's just been kind of bullying this lane. Full mana, still. Might be able to find a lot. Dual lane is doing pretty much everything it was doing last time, maybe with a little bit more damage from Jarcorrr, as opposed to what the ROM was able to put out. But Charlie, after last game, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not sure I'm expecting a first blood anytime soon. Or if it is going to come soon, it's going to be right-hand side of the map. Is what it feels like. Oh,
yep.
Is hanging out over here. Get some damage immediately onto Jarcorrr and Genetics just to zone him out.
He just screamed at him.
Screams at him. And then picks up the shield buff for his team. Kosto stays aggressive, goes in, gets the stun onto Genetics. A couple of autos. Oh, one more would have done it, but the healing's going to be enough from the Afro. And Genetics flirting with Death, but Death not flirting back, at least not yet. Ghost is going to fall back. They do get the neutral objective, the neutral farm. But it's no first blood.
I would like to make a sweeping declaration, because so far it is still true. I've said it many times, and I will repeat myself once more. I have not seen the Blink Hebo start get value yet. I want to see it. I do. I think getting pressure in mid is fine. However, usually it ends up netting a death more than a kill. I think once I saw it get a first blood, that was about it. So, if Tingz, between levels 5 and 12, gets a kill off of Blink, then I'll be sold on it. But usually it's just, hey, I kind of wish I had beads here. You know, like that is usually the call that I see when it gets started out. I can only think of one option when the Blink, like, because at level 12 it's great. You already have damage. You already have, like, plenty of CDR. You're going to have your CC immunity.
Yeah.
And you can use that Blink effectively, but usually it's like a ranked strat, right? You catch someone off guard, you get first blood, it's sick. In this case, and the SPL in particular, I have not seen where I'm like, oh yeah, now I see why we're starting Blink instead of beads and getting at level 12. But Tingz does have the opportunity to prove me wrong, and I would love to see it. If BennyQ steps forward, Blink, water spout, water cannon, ult, dead. Like that can certainly happen, but you have to use it aggressively. Especially if Ducky decides to just walk over towards mid at any given moment, that's an insta-kill onto BigManTingz, unless he pre-ults. Speaking of an insta-kill, maybe Coast is in trouble.
Yeah, Twig, wow, drops the ult, doesn't even need as much assistance as he's getting. Burns through Coast Self Bar, first blood early in this game, sub 4 minutes. Twig able to scoop that one up. And Trelly, it's about as clean as you could get. 3v2 around the shield buff, you get him in the jungle, there's not much more to write to it.
Nope, in this case, a little bit too far up without access to that ultimate. Still have to be a little fearful of the ult there.
Uh-oh.
Variety does use the ult, insta-cancel, trying to take that cooldown buff. Doesn't end up netting any sort of damage. At the very least, he gets to live to see another day. He wasn't in any danger as is, but just wanted to use that ultimate to make sure everyone knows, hey, I'm not afraid to fight here. I'm starting defense. You know, the Thor, the cleanup, both going towards Transcendence. That's going to take a bit to stack up. So they're not going to come out the gate swinging, ready to do damage. Because of that, Variety can sort of do what he wants.
And it's level 6, so we can do what you wanted to earlier. We can look in to see what Oathhh is leveling up. Because you were curious if it was the dash or the scream.
But he's going like 2 points in the...
Yeah, he's kind of scattered it, huh?
Yeah, interesting. Because like your knock community is really useful up against the Hebo, of course. So I get why he wants to put points in the one. But again, like it's always, are you engaging with your dash or not? So Oathhh wants a little bit of both. Maybe he's trying to get aggressive here on Tingz. Could be the call. Hiding near the wall, not quite in it, is not going to get aggressive towards the Hebo. Probably recognize it with Spear of Death, so Hebo's online, essentially. Like he can die, sure, but he does have the damage to try and return fire if you get close to him. So I think it's a smart enough call. Oh, Oathhh just gets into the wall there. CaptainTwig was trying to hunt him down. Doesn't have Blink or Wing Shot, but Regurgitate is available, so the Bakasura could try and find some 1v1s. If caught out in the jungle and is actually invading speed as we speak. And Oathhh is going to be a little tardy to the party. Unfortunately, he's going to show up and see his speed buff is gone.
It does his best to avoid Twig.
He just auto-did nothing.
Yep, man, that's the subtle, not even subtle, that's the realization. Things have gone wrong. This might be more of a realization. Regurgitate dropped onto Ducky, easy pickup. And again, another easy one for Twig. 2-0 and 0, and the Kings finding themselves a grip on this game.
All right, so one more thing. One more sweeping declaration. Blink on Hebo. Haven't seen it that, beneficial.
Yeah, he's got 3 levels.
Teleport on Thor. Ducky does it all the time, and that play happens all the time where it's just CC chain. I mean, if you beads hammer out, Ducky never dies there, but because he doesn't have beads, he always dies there. I guess it's just you want to get back to lane faster.
Yeah.
You're afraid if you get poked out, you'll be here sooner. But you just have so much more survivability if you do get that beads, especially later on. Ducky's really counting on just being like a bruiser late game, ulting in and hoping that he doesn't die, or if he lands an ult that's crucial enough, his team's going to help him out. I suppose it doesn't matter too much. That one gank didn't put him so far behind that he's just going to lose the game. But
Not over.
Yeah, it does depend on, number 1, how quickly he hits level 12, and number 2, if he's using this teleport for some engages. If he teleports over to duo lane and hits a massive ult towards this Gold Fury, once again, I'll eat my words.
That's what I want to see. I love the Thor teleport deep, then get a massive ult where they couldn't see you, or even if they could see you, who cares? You got a semi-global presence. Right now, speaking of presence, Twig has had all of it. Haven't seen as much from Oathhh, and admittedly maybe as much from Ducky, but Ducky's level 9. He's a solo laner. He's not meant to be having a presence just yet. Something's got to happen here for the Hounds. They're down a little over 1,000 gold. And for a second there, Twig was considering the Gold Fury. He started up some autos over there. Did not commit. Just like they're not going to commit to any fights in mid. Still playing cautious. And then there's the duo lane, which is just playing. But nothing too crazy has happened yet, Trelly. Quig with a good slow. You think if Coast maybe can close that gap a little faster, maybe something happens. But outside of the junglers, and very specifically outside of Twig, who still has the blink, still has ult, might be able to find something on Ducky here in a second, although the ward coverage should be pretty good. Nothing too crazy. So instead, I'll turn it over to you in the best place.
Please do.
Blink available for Tingz, and he's got 2 levels to prove to you that it's worth something. Admittedly, he's not like, he hasn't been in the worst world where like he's died 3 times because he doesn't have beads.
Unfortunately, yeah. I will say, if you don't die, there's no reason to have beats, right? If you're not getting aggressed upon, there is literally no reason. I thought Ducky would try and get over towards mid to at least go for 1 ult. I mean, even a wall is enough to confirm the golden apple. BennyQ should be able to blow up Hebo off that CC. And maybe that was the realization. Hey, as long as Oathhh and BennyQ aren't the ones CCing me, which they don't have much of, I don't need beats. And that could have been the call. I'm just thinking, hey, you've got teleport. Clear the wave out once, walk over towards the Fire Giant pit, send one over towards Tingz. Worst case scenario, you miss and you go back over to lane. But in this case, looks like Tingz will be able to make it to 12 just fine. And so, I'm not going to eat my words. I still don't think that it brought that much value. But when you're not afraid of dying and there's not much CC, and of course in this case the Eldritch Hounds put no pressure towards a Hebo with no survivability relics pre-level 12, yeah, you shouldn't be afraid in that case, and Tingz called their bluff.
Yeah, it makes me want, and I've been in this position, but more from Oathhh so far. I mean, just triple goose egg. Admittedly, did start Transcendence, right? That's always going to slow you down a little bit. Maybe we'll see something here. Damage onto Oathhh from Twig was massive. Forced the jungler out. Genetics has the link, so Twig doesn't have to worry too much about his health bar. It's 4v4. Oh, but it might end up being a 3v1. Twig and Genetics catch out Coast, force the dash. But Coast maintains ult, maintains beads. And the rest of the Kings scatter off to the winds to do their own thing. So massive groupings, Jelly. Even a lot of burst damage up front. Nothing too crazy from it. Ducky. Where is he going to go with his ult? Looks like it's just going to be onto the wave. Not too much you can do. Even with Oathhh over here, feels like the Hounds are just having to play too carefully right now, too cautiously to get anything done.
Yep, and in this case, I'm not going to say the Hounds aren't worried because they are falling slowly and slowly more behind in gold, but they are playing towards late game. That always was the call. When you see Kleena locked in my mind, you're saying, hey, I don't want to fight until level 20. If we have to, I will. If there's a golden opportunity, I'll force it, but if not, I'm stacking up Transcendence and I'll see you later. CaptainTwig has been the one controlling the pace of this game on the Baka. He shows up, forces out some relics, forces out 2 kills so far this game, and all the while has been able to pull up a little bit ahead in the jungle department. Oathh's been trying to play catch-up all game. Pyromancer's here, and the Hounds are nowhere to be seen, so this will be a free pickup here for the Camelot Kings. Once it goes down, though, I don't think any alarm bells are going to be ringing saying, hey, we could have went for Gold Fury. Once again, it seems like duo lane is going to continue to be duo lane with both supports just hanging around. And no real pressure. It's actually Ducky's actually stacking up a Soul Eater. He really is playing Farm Simulator. He has no reason to leave lane anytime soon. He said, hey, these minions infinitely spawn over here. I'm just going to keep clearing them. I don't think I wouldn't go help you guys out even if I wanted to at this point. Just trying to stack up these items has been his play.
We didn't see a tier 1 fall until 17 minutes last game. They might be trying to beat that record here. I mean, look, when you double stacking, that's a commitment. And Ducky's going to have, I don't think, any qualms hanging out over here. I don't think the Kings are going to be that upset about it either. Having to keep variety over in that fight while they're pretty successfully controlling the rest of the map. In fact, they might find more double ult from Tingz, and he manages to get the kill onto Quig. Apple, good onto the Hebo. Oathhh goes in, but Oathhh goes down. Twig meets the aggression from the Kleena with an ult. puts him in the ground. A nice 4-0. Now Ducky just kind of looking around. Gonna go to proxy a wave, but there's nothing your team can do. You lost 2. You lost a tower. It looks like you're about to lose a Fury.
Yep, and that right there is one of the good reasons why Aphrodite can be very impactful when attached to a hard carry. Hebo ults in, doesn't have too much safety in that regard, but has the kiss, has the CC immunity. Coast is by himself here, almost surely should fall down because of this gank from Quig. But it looks like the Kings are more focused on the Fury, which is a smart call. Coast, you have to die. There's no way he lives here.
He's walking away.
Wow, the rest of the team just bailed.
Sometimes you got Quig, you got Benny, and I guess like you said, the rest of the Kings don't care about the fight. They don't want the kill. They're up 4-0. But more importantly, they're up 4,400 gold.
I hate when they play so smart.
And you know what? They're going to keep doing it. Maybe here. Genetics is getting low. Oathhh is looking for the kill. Needs something, but he eats a lot of damage. Apple doesn't connect. Ducky goes around the back, though, picks up the kill, and finds Genetics. Now he has to get out of there. No ult for the Thor, but he's finally got those beads online. Hammer over the wall.
Twig have Blink?
Twig,
doesn't
Tings,
seem like
they've
it.
got the
They have a
knock
knock-up.
That's sometimes all you need. Both Blinks down, Trelly, but you can just cut them off in the jungle. Find a kill. 5-1, but finally the Hounds put themselves on the board.
Yep, and in this case, there is now an issue. Of course, CaptainTwig has been playing well all game. That's Bakasura. That's an issue in and of itself, the 4-0. But there's a 1-0 Hebo that's level 15, who has gone uncontested so far this game. I cannot stress enough how easy it would have been to send some pressure towards mid lane, but I get it. You don't want to lose wave. You don't want to be put behind. So because they haven't, who deals with Tings now? I see no one. I mean, it's still Ducky, but he gets out-traded. Like, if he goes to the back line and Tings A has beads or B is attached to genetics, he's just going to die because you can't get Aegis. You have teleport. And Oathhh does no damage. I mean, Kleena is not even close to online yet. You've got Transcendence Brawlers. That's nice, but you're not out-trading a Hebo that's 3 levels ahead of you. The Eldritch Hounds have let this Hebo go unchecked. So at this point, the Camelot Kings are in the driver's seat. And I don't think they have a reason to be afraid at all. There's no one on the side of the Hounds besides maybe Ducky that's a threat in the backline. It's going to take a while before the Hounds can really step up to an even fight. If they have the numbers advantage, of course they can force something. A 3v4, a 2v3, those are the kind of situations the Hounds want to find. But it looks like they're not being put in them, because now it's the Kings who are 3v1, making sure this tier 1 drops over on left.
Honestly, I don't think they're going to meet a lot of resistance. Look, Coast is brave enough to step in 1v5 around a Fury. Shouldn't be stepping up 1v3 under the tower. And honestly, Trelly, this is one of those games. It's just an unfortunate feeling because right now, I mean, it's 5,000 gold. It just feels like it's spiraling out of control for the Hounds. And there's still plenty of ways to try and right the ship, right? A Pyromancer could be a huge step into that, getting the Runic Bomb. But the fight around it matters just as much. There's a blink over the wall. Good damage from Tings right onto Quig. Finds the kill, and they push out Oathhh up into the air. Goes Ducky, comes crashing down, not going to connect with anybody. Twig finds the last hit he needs. And once again, they find 2 for none. Get the Pyromancer, and Trelly, this might just be an early 16-minute Fire Giant.
I mean, when Tings is ulting in like that with 0 fear, yeah, I have no issues. And once again, I have to highlight, this is what Aphrodite's support is played for. When you have a hard carry like Hebo who can just get to the back line and have 0 fear because of that link, this is the reason that you pick that god. When you don't have a hard carry, this is the reason she looks pretty bad. But Tings is just ulting into 4, saying, all right, gnarly. And now I didn't have beads, but I've got 2 forms of CC immunity. I've got an Aegis because I've got the blink. I don't need that extra Aegis because I have this Afro. And I don't want to see genetics linked to anyone else for the next, like, 6 minutes. Looks like at the moment, yeah, he was on Variety, but he's got Jarcorrr for the damage. Once Tings groups back up, that's where this Aphrodite should be. And it's been working out for him. Camelot Kings up 7-1. And the Hounds are trying to go for an ambush here. I don't know how much burst damage they even have. That was a massive strike from BennyQ. Look at this damage. I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, Ducky gets a huge wall. You had mentioned huge strife. Follow-up at the very beginning looked great. Then it was nothing. I mean, like, even the damage right now, it's double strife onto the frontliners, but there's no follow-up. Genetics and Variety feel like they're fine. Ducky goes in, Ducky dies! Hardcore turns it around on him, and now the script has been flipped.
Oh my
the
goodness.
Kings are running them down. Quig knocked up. Quig knocked down. Very easy pickups for the Kings. Another 2. And Trelly, speaking of 2, a tier 2 on right might be the goal. Good strikes from BennyQ, but again, the follow-up just is not there. They might even get the Phoenix.
Yeah, BennyQ's been on point. He might hit another multi-man strife here. Does it matter? No, he's healing them. Look at that. Tingz got hit by his 2 and his 1. Can you tell? Of course not, because the healing is absurd. The Camelot Kings are so far ahead. All I could do was laugh, because that was a fight the Eldritch Hounds wanted. Ducky hits a pretty big ult, but it gets immuned out by genetics. The poke was there, the CZ was there. There's just not enough anti-heal in the world to deal with what the Camelot Kings have done. And that's something that I didn't even consider. Where's the Divine? BennyQ went 3 items, none of which have anti-heal. Of course, Ducky's got the Tainted Steel, but Brawlers, Oathhh wasn't there. And they've got no onks either. This is rough. I don't think this Eldritch Hounds comp ever really works, now that I think about it. If you're relying just on Ducky for your main CC, because no one else really has it, and genetics has the Afro, you need either A, an all-in fight with Onk, which they don't have, or you're fighting for picks, which who's going to get the picks? Is it Ducky? Because, again, Clean is not the best at finding those 1v1s. I guess I never really looked at this draft wholesale because I was waiting for late game, but it doesn't look good for the Hounds.
Now we're late game. Now that you're looking at it, you have the magnifying glass out.
Yep.
Things aren't looking too solid. 9-1. 19 minutes in. I think the only thing slowing this down is that there's 15 seconds left on the Fire Giant power play. So the Kings, unless they get something massive, probably going to settle. Oh no, settle for a couple of towers and a Phoenix, the worst case scenario. Heavy sarcasm here. As Ducky goes into the air, forced the ult super early. Luckily it will be back just in time, maybe just after the Fire Giant respawns, but Trelly, I mean look, game 1, I think it's just good Smite, right? Really balanced between the two. You see some fights, but it's not always going the way of the Hounds, not always going the way of the Kings. A little bit of gold separating them. This has been dominance.
Yep.
I mean, this has been utter control from the Kings. And so where do they make the stand? I mean, can the Hounds step up to this next FG? Do they just sit in the base, hope for a defense, and then another, until we're at enhanced?
Gore, I'm not messing with you. This comp does not work. I do not.
When you said that, like you meant
I'm serious. Like think about the engage. It has to be Ducky hitting an ult.
Yep.
And if genetics is there, it gets 0 value. Tingz has been ulting in aggressively. 0 consequence. This Hebo has not been close to dying once. Like he got a little low during that one fight. It is going to be rough. I think once again the Hounds have to take uneven fights. Like right now, CaptainTwig's kind of by himself with variety. This is a fight they should force. It's not going to work. It's going to be very hard to try and kill a tank, but these are the kind of things they have to do. Go in for the tier 2, try and kill Twig. That's their only play.
Oh, they go for it. They try to kill Quig, but the damage, the turnaround, Ducky barely makes it up to the air. Is going to go for the dunk. Jump from Twig gets him out of there. Stun almost good enough from Variety. Ducky has to fall back. Stays alive. They get the tier 2. They lose the Fire Giant. And Trelly, they might lose a little bit more than that. Still getting bullied from their backs. Variety is keeping people engaged just long enough. Mid Phoenix getting pushed down by the Kings, and there is not a soul to defend it. They pick that one up, and then they just get to saunter back off into the jungle. In fact, they might even be able to close
they're getting cut off.
Coast.
Definitely
Maybe
Quig.
Look for a kill.
Coast
Quig,
should be fine.
Yeah, Coast did the right loop around. Quig just ran back to base. And he's going back to base just the hard way. Grayscale for 40 seconds. Left side Phoenix is the target. Right side's going to spawn back in. Oathhh is getting some work done on the map, but at what cost?
Twig's got 2 runic bombs, and it looks like, yeah, just blinking forward with 0 fear. Yeah, it's just too much damage here. I mean, BennyQ's working on tier 2 Divine. Could not come any sooner. Any poke that comes through gets immediately healed up. That right side Phoenix is going to spawn in one more time, and the Camelot Kings should be able to grab it. They are just waiting. I mean, we're 22 minutes into the game. It is so early on. That was a double tap on the Tingz. Yeah, he took some poke, but once again, Genetics pops a heal, Variety pops a heal. He's full HP. Maybe you wait for one more, but I would say if the Camelot Kings wait for Enhanced Fire Giant, they trolled a bit. Like, this game should be over next FG, guaranteed.
They still have a minute to work with. Maybe all they need
or a pick
is
here.
a Blink pick. Can you get it? Blink is up for Twig. He's in combat right now. Oathhh takes a little bit of damage. Can you get over the wall? Can you find Ducky? Can you find Quig? They're all over this side of the map.
Gets his
Genetics
back
is going to find this. Should be stopped. There's the stun. The rest of the team's nowhere to be found, though. Pick maybe opens up the base. Instead, Fire Giant is going to wear off in about a minute. Respawn in about 2. Get themselves a Fury. An Oni Fury on that. So Fire Minions, enhanced doubly so. Charlie, I'm going to be honest with you. Struggling to figure out what to talk about. If you're just tuning in, the Kings are still winning.
I can paint a miracle scenario because I figured it out. Somehow Genetics has to waste his ultimate, and if he does, and Ducky is able to land like a 4-man stun off his ult.
Yeah.
All the while, Oathhh and BennyQ are there with the follow-up immediately. Like, you're piercing the veil twice. BennyQ, it's a massive 4-man strife off that CC. I could see them getting like 1 to 2 kills. That's the That's the miracle scenario here, because I can assure you the tanks are not dying, and CaptainTwig is looking pretty tanky. My man went Protector of the Jungle and Emp Armor. Like, he has no fear. The good news is Oathhh got Heartseeker. That is a big plus. These proc items I was talking about, Crusher and Heartseeker, are finally online, and that helps out a bit. But the Camelot Kings, I said they would need 1 more Fire Giant. They don't have that Fire Giant, but they're still here. I'm curious if they're going for a pick or they're going to attempt the all-in. Fire's not going to be up for a while, and they're stepping forward.
We've got Oni Fire Minions. Stun onto Oathhh from Genetics. Maybe a knock-up from Tings. Blinks are available. How confident are they feeling? This is really the heat check from them. Or is it going to be this, which is what I expected? Maybe a little bit of the play, see what you can do with the Oni Fire. And then when that wears off, oh no, lament, have to go back and get your free Fire Giant. I mean, at this point, Trelly, backs against the wall. Fire Minion's even walking into the base. Just looking for farm, trying to scrounge up something, if you are the Hounds. The only thing we can talk about is defense, and that's because that is their only option currently. Fire Giant goes the way of the Kings. Ducky's going to start channeling his back. Mid Phoenix about to respawn. So the goal of the Hounds is to try and reset their base, keep themselves going. Find some way back into this game, 14,000 gold down.
Yep, like I said, I think if the Titan does not die in the next 2 minutes, then the other Towns made a miracle stop. I mean, this Titan should be being looked at here for sure. Slowly but surely. Again, look at the healing on the side of the Camelot Kings. They don't have to commit to an all-in. They can go in, poke, retreat, go in, poke. And that there is not going to be a problem. As long as Genetics has kissed the BigManTingz, I don't see an issue here. Variety goes in first. It looks like an all-in attempt just to try and pull some relics back. The apple does hit Tings, but he'll be able to heal that one up.
Yeah, man. All that damage. You half health him, and he's already gotten rid of half of that in 1 wave of Genetics heal.
Yep.
And that's not even everybody committing for it. Left side Phoenix comes back up. We'll see how long that lasts. Twig, Variety, turn their eyes over there. Pretty easy pickup. The downside is the clear for the Hounds is so good, but yeah, no, they're just walking in. Oh, the Titan is defended for a moment. Ducky eats a lot of poke, though. Twig goes around, finds Oathhh, and gets a kill onto the jungler. It has been nothing short of dominance here. Now they need their miracle play. Ducky gets 1 kill. Genetics is low. They're not able to find it here. Trelly, it is a slow burn around the Titan. And enough defense from the Hounds. Just enough to kill off Tings. Finally, by the way, 5-1. But not even enough to get the Kings out of the base. They're still hanging around.
Yeah, that was interesting because the Kings got the Titan about half. And then it seemed like they split up between, should we go for a kill, should we go for the end? Tings gets shut down. He even has Blink and Bead still available. He just decided not to use them.
There's Twig.
Jumping in. He wants to try and go for the ult, and Ghost is gone. Twig should die here, but the Titan is going to die with it.
Yeah, they have so much going for them. It's just hard to argue against that. Look, if you are looking for what a game of Smite looks like when there is one team, that was it. The Kings control that from the beginning. Great plays from Twig, great plays from Tings. And great plays, I mean, you know, you don't see it. It's not as visual. But Genetics, I think, also deserves the shout-out.
Yep, for sure. And in my mind, again, putting all the weight on Ducky to be your main engage is such an issue because Quig is on Hell. You've got a slow. That's about it. You're healing your team. Oathhh is on Kleena. You've got damage. You've got a silence. That's about it. It is all reliant on Ducky, and that is not easy to do. The Thor ults were clutch. I mean, he hit a couple that were like really impactful. They pulled the ultimate, the Undying Loves from Genetics. but it's just so hard. You need at least one more form of easy engage. BennyQ, we saw many massive stripes, but that just clearly was not enough.
Well, game 1, hard-fought win for the Hounds. Game 2, a smooth sailing win for the Kings. Dominance, dominance, dominance is the only way to describe that one. We'll see whether they can keep this up. The Hounds need to answer back. We'll see whether they can do it in game 3 right after this.
A las 12 me dan ganas de llamarte por el FaceTime, a decirte que estás bien fine, que me oras como el wine. Conectamos como Wi-Fi, en otra vida como sci-fi. Tu presencia me pone high. Sé que no son horas de llamar, pero es que quiero comerte a besos. Si Dios quiere se nota, a romperte como todos los versos. Esto no es casualidad, de la forma en que tenemos sexo sobrepasa la realidad. Eres lo más chimba de verdad, yeah. Se vuelve un caos, bebé, somos el Big Bang. Estoy enchulado, tremendo big plan. Voy pa'l poblado, nos vamos pa' la finca, y en la cama buscamos brinca, brinca, yeah. Se juntó el hambre, la que me come, y hasta esta lengua sabe de poesía. Es independiente, la bebé no es mía, pero así se sienta dándonos placer. Y es que cada vez que me suena el decir. Muy bien sabemos qué pasar. Sé que no son horas de llamar, pero es que quiero comerte a besos. Si Dios quiere se nota, pa' romperte como todos los versos. Esto no es casualidad, de la forma en que tenemos sexo sobrepasa la realidad. Eres lo más chimba de verdad, yeah. En la cama una free, vamos por ronda como si esto fuera un ring. Empezamos pero no tenemos fin, ya se me peca y lo mueve como Tilinda. Me tira indirecta, siempre sus stories. Está con su core, pero me tira el cel. Que dónde está la vuelta, manda la shorty. Esa paisita me sube de nivel. Me tira indirecta, siempre sus stories. Está con su core, pero me tira el cel. Que dónde está la vuelta, manda la shorty. Esa paisita, sé que no son horas de llamar, pero es que quiero...
Well, where in game number 1, it was a very close-knit battle between the Hounds and the Camelot Kings. Comes down to one full team fight to actually win out. Mifflin game 2 was anything but that. It was Camelot Kings right from the rip. CaptainTwig on this Bakasura, a much stronger performance out of him. BigManTingz on the Hebo as well, able to get some big damage out there. But also Genetics with a step up on this Aphrodite, really making himself known over from the support role. Felt like the Camelot Kings pulled a complete 180 here in this game.
Yeah, the composition from the Hounds there almost required them to win out in the early game. So once that Bakasura got off to a fast start, I had assumed that the pace of game would maintain on the Camelot Kings side. When you have legitimately 0 CC in your composition, it is so hard to stop a Hebo from doing things like this and walking you down, or stop a Bakasura from walking you down, to get into the back line and actually threaten Jarcorrr. So once the Camelot Kings establish their lead, every single objective goes their way, and the Eldritch Hounds are essentially sitting there praying. Ducky, please hit a 5-man dunk. No pressure, though. Hit a 5-man dunk. No pressure. We didn't get the 5-man dunk. There was no CC. There was no way to stop the aggression from the Camelot Kings, and it's a bounce-back performance that I think they really do need. That game 1 being lost the way that it was cannot be great for the mental, so being able to bounce back as quickly as they did, massive for the rest of the set. Great performances individually from the Kings. CaptainTwig does very well on this Bakasura, getting involved in the early game, identifying the issue, and even this play here to make the decision, all right, double bomb, get in there, find your priority targets, and closing out the game with that ultimate as well. Very good. And now CaptainTwig's fans, who have been perhaps maybe the saltiest fans I've seen in the SMITE community recently, have one they can lean on here and say, hey, look, our guy's doing pretty all right.
Yeah, the haters can back off for at least a little bit with the 7-1-2 out of CaptainTwig this game through. 2-0-7 for Yark and a 0-0-8 for Variety. And I think more than anything, this is the step up that right side of the map needed between Variety and CaptainTwig, where a lot of the struggle was for the Camelot Kings in sets prior. And then a 5-1-4 for BigManTingz. Kind of capped this one out there. Both he and Yark nearly sitting around that 18,500 damage mark for their squad. So now for the Eldritch Hounds, probably the main adaptation, at least from what I can, from Polwich, for what you're saying, for what we saw in this game. If you're going to draft a lot of this hyper damage style, maybe get a little bit of extra CC in the composition, maybe swap out that health for something like a Terra to try to get a little bit more CC from your support role, try and get maybe a little bit of extra initiation as well.
Yeah, I think if you want to run a composition that is completely damage-centric and be CC light, you at least need one guy to be the consistent CC. And we've seen compositions like that in the past where Cthulhu fills that role, goes into Descent of Madness, and then it doesn't matter if the rest of your team doesn't have CC, he's got enough for everybody else. Gods like Athena can do it as well, just constant confounds. There are ways to play this hyper-aggressive style while simultaneously making it a little bit easier for you in the 5-on-5.
So maybe for the Eldritch Hounds, a little something different as far as the composition goes for themselves. And then I've got no complaints for the Camelot Kings. You know, some of the weaknesses that were in game number 1 with the composition really shored up. Game number 2, BigManTingz getting onto this hyper carry style of Hebo, allowed to farm through that early game. Probably not the best ideal, at least for the Eldritch Hounds to have to fight up into, but maybe given that pressure and given that reasoning so by those standout that CaptainTwig had in the early game. So we'll see what changes do get made by both squads. We jump to the picks and bans for game number 3. Now between the Eldritch Hounds and the Camelot Kings. And don't be mistaken, if you're just now tuning in for the first time in this playoffs, this is not the final game. It is a best of 5 between these teams. So a win here will now put the winner of said game on match point in the best of 5. You got to win 3 of those games in order to take it through here. But so far, no change-ups in the ban column just yet for these 2 squads, except for right now with a Hebo ban by the Eldritch Hounds, recognizing that is going to be a problem if you give BigManTingz another pick like that.
Yeah, BigManTingz just puts out so much damage in that last match. I'm not certain that the Eldritch Hounds need to be directly addressing it right now, though. I think Game 2 is like 60%, 70% even draft diff. I think Hebo, of course, incredibly powerful, hits his power spike early on. Second item, power spike type of god, gets things rolling. But if you just have a little bit of CC, Hebo generally starts to struggle. Could be a pick that they could have looked to exploit. Instead, will ban it out themselves, and the Camelot Kings stick with their Surcat ban. Martikaras flanks him. Eldritch Hounds Hercules in that last slot. Leaves a lot of priority picks available. That Guan Yu immediately comes to mind. Both healer supports out there as well. Hell and Aphrodite still on the table. But the Eldritch Hounds have found their home in the Hachiman. All those buffs recently. Hachiman looks good. I'm not, you know, full in on the win rate, saying, you know, maybe he's not as good as we think. He is a phenomenal boxer, generally very safe in lane, scales well into the late game. Hachiman is good. Is it first pick overall good? I'm not sure if I'm there just yet.
Yeah, you do give up the Guan Yu to the Camelot Kings once more, and Yemoja didn't get banned either, so that could maybe be
Terra's there too.
A pivot pick that goes there. We haven't actually really seen a lot of Terra bans as of recent, so I'm surprised how maybe little priority has been thrown over towards her way. Maybe we could see both Yemoja and Terra as a possible pickup, maybe pivot away from the mage supports.
And we know that Genetics really likes the Terra pick into Yemoja. Quig is a guy that is willing to play the Yemoja. Genetics, every single time it feels like he's lined up against that god, locks in the Terra and says, okay, Riptide doesn't work against me, and it's so easy to see where you're going. He is consistently being able to throw up that clap, the second ability to block out Riptide dashes and things like that. So wouldn't be surprised to see the Camelot Kings hold off on their support selection for now. Guan Yu locked in. Strong, defense shred, a little bit of sustain, good initiation, CC, everything you want out of a soul laner, and then an immediate ADC response as well. This is something we had seen in Game 1 from the Camelot Kings, so I'll bring up the same thought I had then, which is the Eldritch Hounds are not a team that generally like to run double hunter compositions. Feels like if you really wanted to grab your hunter in top 3, you probably would just grab it in that third slot. I think it's unlikely that Cern would have been taken away there. Instead, perhaps the Camelot Kings waiting to see a bit more of the Eldritch Hounds draft before they grab BMT's pick or maybe Twig's pick to get some counter selections.
Now will we see Quig's pick in the support role? Or Hell, Aphrodite, Terra, Yemoja, if you want your healing supports, all still available and on the table for the Eldritch Hounds. I wonder if they'll get a priority pick for BennyQ as well. I mean, game number 1, they let the Discordia all the way go into the counter pick in that 4th, 5th slot. Game number 2, they pick up Discordia in the top 3 to keep it out of BMT's hands. Now with the Hebo gone, still could be an option to try and ban away, but still so many top priority mages. Feels like you could go with just about any of them at this point, especially things like the Merlin, the Baba Yaga. But instead, it's going to be Aphrodite now for the Eldritch Hounds. So Quig going to be piloting this one, and then Ducky immediately responding with an Odin. Only 2 of the gods drafted on the Camelot Kings so far. Neither of them can get out of the cage naturally, but now opens up the door for the Camelot Kings to find some picks that can get themselves out of these cages.
I thought this Odin would be a selection that dissuades the Camelot Kings from going towards a sustained support. So you definitely don't want the Hell into Odin. That is one of the most miserable matchups in Smite. Yemoja, I mean, it's not as bad, but still, it would have mitigated a good deal that sustain. Fortunately for Yemoja, has HP shielding in kit, and Odin Cage doesn't do anything about that. So should find some value there, keep your allies alive. Another one that's locked in by that cage, but we've seen Phantom Shell as a very fast answer, especially for Yemoja. Could be that that's where Genetics puts his eyes early on. Baton pass between these supports. Aphrodite now on the other side. Haven't seen any great link targets just yet for the Eldritch Hounds. Potential to go for the E-couple combo. Susano still available, one of Oathh's favorites, and a combo that they've run pretty consistently so far throughout the regular phase. But Susano also doesn't have any particularly good targets just yet on the Camelot Kings. Cern, of course, could be susceptible to some early rotations. Merlin, pretty decent target as well. Wouldn't be surprised to see the Eldritch Hounds jungler elect to take the Susano for himself.
Yeah, it's one of the most picked junglers, at least for Oathh, is that Susano, right behind the Circuit at this point, as far as his picks are concerned. Still waiting for an option for BennyQ as well to see what he's going to square off with for this Merlin. The Agni, the Baba Yaga, the Hebo, and the Marty now all off the table, along with this Merlin that did just get picked up. So where will BennyQ go? Could be back to Discordia, could just run it back again for game number 3. Now he's had a couple of games to practice on it, had a strong performance in game number 1. No complaints from it in game number 2, just unfortunate that his CC was some of the only CC provided to the remainder of his team there. Still strong damage output. But not much time left on the bank time for the Eldritch Hounds. They got to make their decision quick as to what they go for Oathh, what they grab for BennyQ. Because right now, I'm looking at this Camelot Kings. You got Guan, Yemoja, a lot of self-sustain, a lot of team sustain with those 2 picks. Merlin, decently safe, has a lot of damage output. Same with the Cernunnos around objectives. What is it missing maybe from the Eldritch Hounds composition team fight-wise to go up against not only this heavy CC, but this massive AoE control zone?
Yeah, I don't think that this composition is particularly missing anything, J-Mac. This is a luxury pick now for CaptainTwig out of the jungle. You can either say, hey, I want a little bit more facilitation. Let's try and play through Jarcorrr and BMT. And if that's the case, Twig in the past has gone towards things like Vamana, just to create space. He's gone towards the Hun bots for heavy CC output. So Wheelish is an interesting hover. Probably just a reactionary pick to the Odin. That leap, so Telegraph, Fenrir, and Discordia struggle up against it as well. Instead, it's the Naja for the Camelot Kings. Naja's a pick that has worked out a good deal for just about everybody that's locked it in ever since everyone's figured out that penetration is the build. You want Titan's Bane, Serrated Edge, and you can just deal with tanks in that front line and have the rest of your team finish them off once they land. But it's another pick that struggles up against that Odin cage of very easily immutable ultimate thanks to that Aphrodite. Going to be really difficult to win Fire Wheels anyone she's connected to. And for the most part, you imagine it's either going to be the Fenrir or perhaps even the Hachiman at times. I don't hate the Naja pick. I don't particularly love it either. Skill dependent, of course. Play on field dependent. Has an okay matchup into the Fenrir in the late game one-on-one. We so often see it be a 4-1 split on Siege, and those junglers are usually the one. You've got a good answer to brutalize. And it's a little bit of threat on beads, which should facilitate the Guan Yu. The Naja, it's put me in a weird spot where I don't know how to feel about it one way or the other.
Now, aside from this Odin, which will be able to trap in effectively 4 of the targets for the Camelot Kings, Merlin, should his flicker be up, should be able to get out of that cage. Outside of things like the Phantom Shell, what do the Eldritch Hounds have in their tools to try and fight up against this Camelot Kings? I mean, there's so much sustain on their side. Again, they've got the area lockdown with the Yemoja, the CC, and just the damage output. What tools do the Hounds have to fight up against the Camelot Kings in these matchups?
Well, I mean, we've already talked about the Odin cage and how just about everybody on the Camelot Kings is going to really struggle up against that. Feels like the Fenrir is going to be very high pressure throughout the early game. Decent matchup into the Cern. So long as Bramble Blast is down and it's pre-5, there's not really a great answer in the duo lane to Fenrir's Brutalize. Yemoja, of course, has that stun, but it's pretty difficult to line that one up. And if you have to channel twice, can probably get about 2 or 3 procs out from Brutalize before that stun follows through. I see a very aggressive early game composition from the Eldritch Hounds, completely contingent on Oathh's performance. If Oathhh can get things rolling, because when you look at the lanes themselves, we know VaporishCoast is going to try, but it's really difficult for these hunters to get things done sometimes. It's a very large lane, very safe lane as well. Odin, for the most part, likely to be left alone on an island. I don't see him struggling too much in his direct matchup. Could facilitate some ganks. Guan Yu really does struggle against that cage, so again, makes it easier for Fenrir to rotate through. The Eldritch Hounds, almost top to bottom, a composition that should facilitate this Fenrir throughout the early.
Maybe a slow start for the Camelot Kings, but for the Eldritch Hounds on the opposite foot, maybe try and get the things rolling as quickly as possible. The set is tied up. Who's going to put it on match point? Let's jump right in and see if it'll be the Hounds or the Kings.
Who will find that leg up, Shelly? And I'm going to just leverage that question to you. Who do you think is going to find the leg up?
That's a good question, Gore.
Oh.
That's a fantastic question. Let's see
do we need to get the magnifying glass out again for you? Last time you waited a little bit before you started looking deep into specifically the Hounds draft.
That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see what Twitch chat had to say, and that is overwhelming support for the Camelot Kings. Which is a bit shocking, considering that I think this draft in particular looks a lot better. But I will say, Twitch chat in particular has a deep hatred for the Afro support. You know, we've been talking about it a lot, how, you know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think last game it worked very well. But in this case, it definitely loses some of its value because I don't see a traditional hard carry that you're going to be linked to. Like, the Fenrir is fine. The Hachiman's okay. The Odin's certainly not. Like, those are the kind of picks that I'm not looking towards for the Afro. It's just the sustain that you're bringing. And then on the other side, you've got genetics on Yemoja, variety on the Guan, which is going to provide a ton of that sustain as well. And we already saw that was a bit of an issue. So I think I see where Twitch chat's going, and I tend to agree. It could be an issue, the amount of CC and setup they have. Oathhh taking a lot of damage. The ring bouncing off the bastions is going to create some space as well. But to answer your question, Gore, whoever wins, that's who's going to get the leg up.
You know what? Well answered. And whoever wins this one right now, it's a first blood for the Kings, and a quick one at the tower line, Trelly. Good stun from Genetics. He gets the kill. So despite some of the pressure feeling like it could have happened in mid, it's all over and left. And to make matters worse, the kill is on the coast, so a little bit of farm to lose out on super early. You've got to imagine, if you're thinking after the way Game 2 went, you're the Hounds, you need to change something. Shift up. That's not what you want to happen.
No. I'd argue that's the opposite that you wanted to happen. Maybe you wanted to get first blood over in duo lane.
Ideally getting it. Definitely not losing it, definitely not a minute in.
Yeah, and definitely not Coast. If anything, Quig going down would have been much more beneficial, but in this case, Coast loses that opportunity. At least Genetics gets the first blood. Could have went over to Yark. That would have been disastrous. But Genetics still can make a lot happen. Ducky was certainly getting the better end of those trades over and right. I do like... Solo lane has a very interesting aggression curve. We have to see if the cripple connects. It doesn't, but Coast is once again in a bit of trouble. He will be able to dash away, barring a stun from Genetics. But for solo lane, it's pretty much no fighting, no fighting. Level 2, we're going to go all out, pop our shards, go as aggressive as we can, and then no fighting until junglers show up. And in this case, no one actually nets the kill. Oathhh was forced to beads, which is interesting. I guess he was fearful of a rotation from Variety. It's not like CaptainTwig got enough damage to try and solo him out, but did not want that stun to connect and feared the damage that followed after. But Ducky doesn't have the mana here. I don't think this fight goes too well unless he gets a full brutalize.
Yeah, ring toss. It just goes so hard there. I mean, there's no reason. I don't know why. Jumping in a 2 against a Naja. I'm going to be surprised if this doesn't end poorly for them. That's 2 kills. Shelly, I don't know.
We could see it. I don't know why they couldn't. Wasn't a good fight.
I mean, the beats, especially the order, right? I mean, you had even highlighted it. Like, the beats screams, I don't want to fight.
Yep.
To then go back in and fight is definitely an interesting decision to me.
Yep. Ducky had no mana. Oathhh got the brutalize off, which I'm guessing that was the big turn. Like, hey, let's go in. He doesn't have Satch. I can hit all of my ticks of brutalize. In this case, doesn't really work out. Variety was just trying to get Totem there. That's the reason that ult came through. He tried to disguise it as I'm going for the kill, but really he wanted Totem. And it doesn't look like he'll be able to get it. Ducky will defend this Totem with his life. But losing the beads means that Oathhh has to watch out because Windfire Wheels is available. CaptainTwig already heading over towards the right side of the map. And that would certainly be enough to net a kill. Just that ultimate and the follow-up from Variety means that Oathhh has to watch out until he hits level 5, of course. Then you get a little bit more survivability. Beautiful ult here. It's going to get some value, but can Yark close gap in time? Doesn't seem like it. Quig gets stunned. There's the CC.
Polymorph, and sometimes that's all you need. No Quig. Still welcome. Look at the path, though. That's going to be a couple of dash forward, and that's not just going to be one. They're looking for the second. BennyQ does find Twig, gets something back for his team. They might lose a little more in the process. No, they're chasing down Variety. Good CC. Oh, and Trelly, I was starting to get worried there. A little stressed out. The Hounds right the ship. Admittedly, they're still quite almost 1,000 gold behind, but they keep things from sinking.
I tried to figure out how Twig died there. I mean, he uses ult. BennyQ's beads are still up, and the apple's gone. So clearly he ate an apple to the face, but how much damage? I mean, you had to be real weak to get 100-0'd by a Chronos Pendant Discordia. So probably not a good time to go in. Tingz, of course, goes over to try and help Variety, who was just going for the not the greatest fight. I'm guessing it was they caught him out at blue buff invade, and then both die for their troubles. So now the Eldritch Hounds are showing they can still answer back despite falling down a bit early on. Giving 1 kill over to Oathhh and 1 kill over to BennyQ is certainly going to be the start to some good looks here for the Eldritch Hounds, especially after the disastrous duo lane that we've seen so far. Whereas Coast gets first blood, and then immediately after, Jarcorrr able to find the kill on the Quig. And you highlighted it, almost a second kill if he was able to get the slows from his first ability, that winter stance. Could have got a few more auto attacks heading over towards Coast. But I love this pace the Camelot Kings have set. They're showing their aggression. They're trying to invade buffs whenever possible. And they don't seem to be afraid of anything.
I've been trying to think of alliteration. You said disastrous duo. It's the disastrous duo division derisively decides.
Oh my goodness.
There's got to be another D word
That's
in
more
there
than I had.
For their winning. As of right now, it's just been pressure, man. 6-6 for the levels and everybody in the duo lane. So maybe not a huge experience gap despite the first blood and 2 kills that the Kings have been able to pick up.
He stole it.
And that's just gotta hurt Genetics. Should walk away from this one, the Riptides. Create a little bit of a gap stun from Oathhh. Ymir has the ult, not going to commit it. And that's going to be, I think, the big question mark. It's only 1,000 gold separating these, right? The kills definitely feel like they were getting out of hand. Not a lot in terms of map pressure, not a lot. That has changed in terms of gold pressure for these teams. Yet the kills that we've seen from the Kings have felt maybe a little more devastating every single time. Starting to wonder, I mean, you had mentioned it, the hyper carries, or lack thereof, on the side of the Hounds, needing to get something done, especially to try and stop Twig, and maybe try to slow down some of the other members of the Kings. And if Genetics is having the time that he is, I wouldn't be upset seeing something come over to duo lane, try to at least slow him down.
Yep, could be a case of trying to pick this Yemoja, could be the call. We saw Oathhh look towards left, realize, oh, you've got beads up, that's no good. Variety, of course, had his ultimate, so CC immunity not going to be an issue there. Oathhh is more so just looking for farm here. It's not easy trying to gank this Guan Yu. But Ducky's got the Transcendence, so there's a bit of damage. If he's able to pull Variety under tower, that could have been a difference. You cage him in underneath. Could be a good time. But I tend to agree. I think Genetics, if he's given room to work on the Yemoja, can certainly be disastrous in a team fight setting, and he's already getting towards that point, making those rotations, sitting in mid lane. No room for a Phantom Shell just yet. Quig started the Bracer, which means that he'll probably get it next. But it is relatively easy to lock down an Afro in the Rivers Rebuke, and that's something that Genetics is, I don't know if I've ever seen him miss, to be honest. It's rare if it does come through. So as long as he's able to get the value out of one of those ultimates, usually he can follow up with the second one. And that's going to be enough pressure. A little bit of a scrap here between Yark and Coast. Jarcorrr wants to fight. He wants the 1v1s. They're built to relatively even, but Twig taking some damage here.
Yeah, use the ult, but against a CC immune target so nobody goes up into the air. Apple just off the mark, doesn't find damage onto Twig. Quig, Oathhh, fall back. I would argue both teams probably happy no one dies there. Invade immediately started by the Kings, though. Coast not going to have too much to say about that. And Purple gone for the second time in a row. Sometimes, Trelly, it's the little things. They start to add up. You know, we were talking 1,000 gold for a little while. Now we're talking 1,500. And if they keep this kind of pace up, the Hounds are going to find themselves quickly into a position, not like the end of the last game, but where they were about 9-10 minutes in.
And that's still an issue, right? You don't want to fall behind. And you don't want to let the Camelot Kings do what they want. Those are two big issues. Ducky forced into a defensive cage, but Oathhh is here. One stun would be enough to try and force a kill here. But here comes CaptainTwig. And remember, Oathhh already beads. He's in some big trouble.
Sometimes you just need 2 stuns, and it's that easy. I mean, the Variety goes up, down, and then the Sash is there to follow up. You had mentioned it, no beats, no life. Oathhh is gone. I was honestly curious if maybe they could get the tier 1 out of that. It's been kind of slow roll on the towers this set.
They will.
But they're going to have a minion wave. They're going to have pressure. And, I mean, there's nothing. Ducky has no health, hardly any mana to work with here. So he's going to have to watch. As his tower goes down, more gold shuffles its way into the King's pocket.
We do get that. But Ducky's still sitting around here. He wants to try and find a fight with Quig. Immediately ults out and says, nope, I have no need to try and 1v1 you. I'm going to run away. And it's probably the smart call. Again, Ducky is building more towards damage. He's got the Transcendence. And without any follow-up from Variety, that 1v1, probably not something you want to waste your time on. So Twig just ults out and lives to fight another day. Oathhh falling pretty far behind, though, in the jungle, sitting at level 8 so far. This Fenrir is having a rough time. With the 4 beads and Variety playing as safely as he has, you don't have any easy targets to try and go for. You talked about earlier maybe looking towards dual lane. I think it would have been a nice call, but at this point, Oathh's just too far behind. If he looks towards dual lane, he's probably going to get he's going to get more damage returned to him than he can really dish out. And that's why this Gold Fury is being pulled, and that's why it's gone. The Camelot Kings just have all the map control they could want.
You know, we were watching, I think it was prior to this set, the Term Talk video for JMac came up. That's what we like to call burn.
Oh, yeah.
Right there. I mean, that is monstrously fast. And to double up on that, that was wild how little damage.
I was going to say, yeah. that was not burn, what we just saw onto Variety's HP. That was, he was tickling him, it seemed like.
That's like, he had, you know, the kindling set up,
yep.
But it had rained the night before, and everything was wet. Nothing's going to catch.
That's for all you campers out there.
Yeah,
that's a camping reference.
All those like 5 people in chat who also did Boy Scouts, that one's for you. Pyromancer started up here by the Kings, and they're going to get that no problem. Runic Bomb goes over towards Twig one more time. With that, 2 neutral objectives. And Trelly, I mean, maybe start the timer. It's 4,000 gold, man, in 12 minutes, shy of 12 minutes. So the Kings, I mean, you're going off of game 2 coming into this one. The Hounds have to draw a line in the sand somewhere and make a stand, and I just haven't seen it yet.
I do think in the Hounds' favor, there is one thing going for them that they didn't have in game number 1, and that's that Ducky can make a lot easier rotations. You don't have to rely on a massive skill shot, him landing this Anvil of Dawn. He could just, you know, wait till level 12, blink in, hit a massive cage, and that could help out a ton. There's a lot of members of the Kings that don't appreciate being stuck in the cage. They all went beads because they were fearing Oathhh. And this is sort of the issue. Oathhh does not have any room to try and get aggressive, whereas I think Ducky could make impactful rotations, but look who's making the impactful rotation. It's not Ducky, it's Variety. He's behind.
Talu Assault immediately channeled. Doesn't even care about the kills right now. It's the tower. That's the goal. Runic Bomb used. Tower taken down. The Kings, I mean, Trelly, they immediately back up. They know not to overstay their welcome. They're playing, I don't even know if the word carefully is appropriate here. They're just playing better, cleaner. And so the Hounds need to figure out a way to stand into this, but there's just not enough damage on the board yet. Maybe we have to look towards BennyQ. I mean, you had said it with the Aphrodite. There's not anybody who you see as the, by and large, hyper carry. This is who I attach to. Probably Fenrir of everybody. Coast always does big numbers whenever he joins, but we haven't gotten to see the carries really join into any of the fights just yet, and he's 2 levels down right now.
Yep.
Kings might not have much to do on the map until the Fury spawns in, but are they really worse for wear because of it? They're 5,000 gold ahead. Knocking on the door to 6K, and they haven't had many answers back.
Yeah, and I think that's the main issue. Every bit of damage, every bit of time that passes by, I was going to say maybe Ducky can find the 3, but not enough damage. Variety forces out. Every minute that passes by, more gold goes into the pockets of the Kings. They are just farming better. So the Eldritch Hounds, use your phrasing here, need to draw a line in the sand. Are we going to group up, find a big cage, and try and stop this bleeding? Or are we completely giving up all fighting, and we are only looking for the scraps, the table scraps of farm? It seems like BennyQ can't even step the lane without losing 80% of his HP. And Quig actually goes over to right lane with help from Oathhh. Variety doesn't have the ultimate, but doesn't even matter. This is 3v2. Twig ults out, and you lose all your pressure. Now Genetics is trying to go over to left lane because he knows, hey, they're safe over on right. Maybe I can stop a back. Doesn't work out, but doesn't matter. The Kings are just fine with this. I mean, they're going to lose a little bit of farm, but they're still gaining some over on the left. They still have plenty of control in mid lane, as we saw. BennyQ cannot step up to BigManTingz at the moment.
Plus, left is where the Fury's spawning,
yep.
right?
Oni Fury just touched down, and where are they? Immediately on it. It's just the carries pulling Oni at the moment.
And Genetics and Twig wandering over towards the right-hand side of the map. I guess if you don't need everybody over there, why commit to it? Tings is slightly worse for wear because of it, but the health bar not too worried. Twig, no ult, still has beats, forced back tier 1 in right.
Oh, they're so stuck.
Genetics comes in. Genetics should be able to drop some walls here. Might be devastating, but instead they're letting him walk away, waiting for the carries to maybe get there, try to have some bigger follow-up. Blink forward from Twig, gets the sash on the Ducky. Ult about to come back up for the Naja, has to get engaged in here. Variety goes in for the stun, finds one immediately. There is the River's Rebuke, and it is gonna go just as big as you'd imagine. The carries rotate in. It's a double for one, a single on the other, slow onto Quig, and a very quick pickup, 2 for 2. It is a double kill for both Tings and Jarcorrr. And just like last game, we're getting a 16-minute Fire Giant and a dominating performance from the Kings.
And see, that's the reason, Gore. That's the reason that I am not known as one of the best supports in the world, because I would have taken that first ult underneath the tower. I would have grabbed 2 people, said, yeah, this is nice. We'll get 2 kills, call it a day. Genetics says, I'm going to wait till my whole team groups up, get the 4-man ult, make sure that we kill 4, and get a 16-minute Fire Giant. And that's just patience. Good trigger discipline in this case. Doesn't want to pull that ultimate too early, and lines it up perfectly. And unfortunately for the Eldritch Hounds, they have missed the mark. I mean, Ducky's ultimates are losing value by the second. Odin is getting closer and closer to falling off. And Oathhh has no one to ult. There is never... Look at all the beads. There was a fight. We just witnessed a fight, and there are 4 beads still available. I don't know if you know, but usually you'd like to pull beads in a team fight. So Oathhh still doesn't have a way to get in, even after they lose 4 members of their squad.
Man, that's rough.
Yep.
That's just rough. I can't even think of another phrase for it. That's my brain is boggled by that. A team fight that goes down. Meanwhile, you look towards the other side. The 4 beads that are up, all on cooldown for another minute. Twig has ult. They've got a lot of CC. Finally, something goes the way of the Hounds. They get a tier 1 in right. 2 minutes left on the power play and a lot of wiggle room to work with. The Kings are knocking on the left side tier 2. There's not anyone here to meet them. Tower should go down easily. Phoenixes are a different conversation 16 minutes in. So the Kings are going to back up, put their pressure up in mid.
Yep, this is a taller task for sure to try and grab the Phoenix this early on. Remember, if you want to try and make use of your solo laners, that's fine. Variety is level 16. He's got a little bit of Fizzd at the moment, but Genetics, he's essentially got, you know, he's got 3 tank items, but the Fabless hoops aren't going to help too much with tanking up the Phoenix. You really do prefer the amp armor that it seems like Variety might be building into. That would help out when trying to go for Phoenixes this early on. And if Genetics can stop some backs, which it looks like he can, the teleport in from Ducky was enough to make sure that right Phoenix isn't looked at. So the Camelot Kings will back up. They have fire for the 50 seconds. It is a risky call to try and go for the Phoenix when you're still in the teens of numbers. You want the 20s. That's when you're looking towards Phoenix. That's when you can tank it up a little bit better. When you're still in the 18, 19 range, those Phoenixes really do start to stack up. It is essentially a 6th or even a 7th man that could help out the Eldritch Hounds if they're able to get a massive cage underneath. Remember, Phantom Shell only on Jarcorrr. So if that's forced out or Yark isn't close to his team, that Phantom Shell doesn't get as much value, and Ducky's pick gets a little bit better. But the Camelot Kings are still in the driver's seat here. Of course, the Eldritch Hounds don't have a leg up really anywhere. They're stepping forward, but only because the Primal Fury's up and they know they can push a right wave in or two. Once that Primal Fury goes down, the Camelot Kings, they're going to head right on back to the Fire Giant and repeat what they just did, but this time with Phoenixes in mind. And yep, it was the Emperor's armor. Variety's already got it. He knows how much sieging they're going to be doing here soon.
This is a team that very much is planning, and maybe successfully so, on getting aggressive under Phoenixes. And Charlie, it's always I feel like in this day and age, the Emperor's armor that
It's a telltale
Probably
sign.
gives it, gives it away a little bit more. You know what the team is looking for. Maybe a pick here onto BennyQ. Up to the sky with Twig.
He had beads.
Had beats. Doesn't have his life anymore. Kill for variety. Quig's just trying to get away. The amount of stuns and CC and body blocks even on top of that, there's nothing you could do
They don't need fire.
about that one. Look, I got to give him the shout out while I'm thinking about it. It was a 1754 level 20 for Tings. He's still the only level 20 in the game. And with the rest of the team, they're marching it down on the right-hand side. That Phoenix is a very
They're going for
easy
the end.
one to walk through. They might be able to.
Okay,
No,
I was
they
gonna
fall
say.
back. And they still got 10 seconds without people. Maybe the damage could have been there. Damage is trying to be there. At least the defense is trying to be there.
Insane
Mid-Phoenix,
cage.
slow burn. No fire giant buff around the belts, but they get it nonetheless. It's 11-2 Trelly, 20.5 into the game. 11,000, 12,000 gold, and rising.
Well,
What do the Hounds do?
Last game I made a prediction, and I said if the Kings don't end off this fire giant they threw, I'm going to make the same call. If they don't end off of this next fire giant, and that's saying a lot. It's 21 minutes in, and it's usually pretty easy to defend. Then they're probably throwing a bit. Like it will take a bit, right? They have to push down left. I'm not going to say a full-on throw. This is still very early. Now that I think about it, if Variety ults at all, Oathhh can probably pull him underneath Fountain, and that will help out a bit. But still, the Camelot Kings, they've got everything going for them. I mean, they have all their relics available.
Man, they've got it all.
They've got so much poke. Jarcorr's got the Odin bow, so you can't even body block his autos for the Titan. It doesn't seem like they can mess this one up as long as they play it slow, make sure they grab that left side Phoenix, and then start looking for poke. Variety already here, just being annoying towards Oathhh. Not going to be able to find much. But yeah, it's not going to be an easy look to try and defend here, especially if you lose Oathhh because of the body blocks.
Ult just for good measure, and not even to get the kill, just to close the gap. I mean, look, it's that simple.
Yep.
And so far, it's clean. Now it's going to be an easy pickup on the left side. Phoenix, you had mentioned it. Can they end in this fire giant? They're going to go for it. Rivers of You clocks in 2. Not enough to keep him there. Phantom Shell works wonders towards the other side. Naja ring toss gets some slow around there. Apple good, but on to genetics and genetics alone. Falls back. Healing should still be there for the Kings. Fire giant going to work out well for him. Fire minions making their way down the lane. Another pick. Maybe necessary to try and get the win here and now. They're just DPSing the Titan, though. They have to be able to hold on to it long enough. DPS from Tings, thrown a little further back, but it doesn't matter. They kill off Ghost. They kill off the Titan in 2 back-to-back dominating games. The Kings find themselves the lead in this set.
Yep, 22 minutes. And again, I have similar issues with the composition of the Eldritch Hounds. And I understand if you get ahead, anything can work. But in this case, there was 0 beads burn except for Oathhh. Oathhh was the one getting beads. If he wasn't getting beads, he wasn't going in. If Oath's not going in, no one's going in.
Yeah.
Ducky's hitting cages. Were you trapped in with Ducky, or was Ducky trapped in with you? He was leaving after he was caging, so there's no follow-up. I'm thinking, number one, the early pressure, of course, is an issue. Getting off to a great start in solo lane for CaptainTwig. Getting off to a great start in duo lane for Genetics getting first blood. Those are the kind of things that look towards wins for the Camelot Kings. But again, I think an ease of access to CC is something that the Hounds are really lacking in Game 2 and 3 now.
Well, maybe that's something that they'll fix for Game 4, because as of right now, they've only got one more to turn things around, or else the Kings are going to move forward in the bracket. The Hounds are going to have to live or waiting to play another day.
Yep.
Wow. Find out whether or not they can do it, and I'm going to hit the reset button on myself. If they can balance things out, push us to 5, or if it's all going to end right after this.
las 12 me dan ganas de llamarte por el FaceTime, a decirte que estás bien fine, que mejoras como el wine. Conectamos como Wi-Fi, en otra vida como sci-fi. Tu presencia me pone high. Sé que no son horas de llamar, pero es que quiero comerte a besos. Si Dios quiere se nota, pa' romperte como todos los versos. Esto no es casualidad, de la forma en que tenemos sexo sobrepasa la realidad. Eres lo más chimba de esta, yeah. Se vuelve un caos, bebé, somos el Big Bang. Estoy enchulado, tremendo big plan. Voy pa'l poblado, nos vamos pa' la finca, y en la cama buscamos brinca, brinca, yeah. Se juntó el hambre, la que me come, yeah, tanta lengua sabe de poesía. Es independiente, la bebé no es mía, pero así se siente dándonos placer. Y es que cada vez que me suena el cel, muy bien sabemos qué hay pa' hacer. Sé que no son horas de llamar, pero es que quiero comerte a besos. Si Dios quiere se nota, pa' romperte como todos los versos. Esto no es casualidad, de la forma en que tenemos sexo sobrepasa la realidad. Eres lo más chimba de esta, yeah. En la cama una free, vamos por ronda como si esto fuera un ring. Empezamos pero no tenemos fin, ya se me peca y lo mueve como Tilín, bebé. Me tira indirecta, siempre sus stories. Está con su core, pero me tira el cel. Que dónde está la vuelta, manda la shorty. Esa paisita me sube de nivel. Me tira indirecta, siempre sus stories. Está con su core, pero me tira el cel. Que dónde está la vuelta, manda la shorty. Esa paisita. Sé que no son horas de llamar, pero es que quiero comerte a besos. Si Dios quiere se nota, pa' romperte como todos los versos. Esto no es casualidad, de la forma en que tenemos sexo sobrepasa la realidad. Eres lo más chimba de esta, yeah. N.I.C.O. Ricky Baker, Poster Boy Papá.
Winning Game 3 for the Camelot Kings now puts them on match point and puts them that much closer to finding themselves a nice little expedited process in seeding here for the Masters performance as this playoffs continues through. And while we'll be seeing all these SPL teams at the Masters, we'll also be seeing some of the SCC teams that have qualified for Masters in just a couple of weeks. There are a couple of spots in the SCC up for relegations, which will be starting next weekend on June 10th and 11th, Saturday and Sunday. Here in studio, we'll be covering the SCC relegations process, where the bottom two SCC performers from this phase and the top two SOC performers will be battling out for those two SCC spots. Obviously, the winner will be promoted up back into the either back into the SCC or up to the SCC. Losers will be moving down to the SOC for the next phase of play. So make sure that you tune in next Saturday and Sunday for the SCC relegations. And then after that, back into the Masters. And with a performance like the Camelot Kings have here in game number 3, Mifflin, feels like they've got themselves a pretty nice run through this playoff tournament, potentially up towards that Masters run. Because, man, game 3 was even more dominant than game 2, and I didn't think that was possible with how fast game 2 would win. A 22-minute, roughly, game 3 for the Camelot Kings. Felt like it was just too easy for them.
Yeah, just really did just roll them up, man. That was absolutely ridiculous. It seems as if game 2 was the heat check. Oh, that's how we can win. That's what we need to do. And game 3 was just solidifying that play style. Genetics, the standout for me throughout this one. Just constant pressure on the Yemoja, stealing away purple buffs consistently, standing between towers, being as annoying as possible, re-sustaining his team, and a couple of back-breaking ultimates to boot. The duo lane as a whole for the Camelot Kings just got the better end of VaporishCoast and Quig on the other side. These games difficult to break down because everything that could have gone the Camelot Kings' way just about does, barring maybe 1 or 2 team fights on the opposite side of them. So if there were 3 members of the Kings on one side, the Eldritch Hounds would put their 3 on the other, and occasionally we're able to hit pay dirt, and then occasionally we're chain CC'd into the ground, like you just saw happen to Oathhh. Tough stuff, man. I wonder where the adaptations would have to start for the Eldritch Hounds, because it's not as if it's the classic Camelot Kings, just path of least resistance, neutral farm till 20 minutes, and then beat you in a team fight. This is the Camelot Kings showing up in the laning phase, putting their foot down and saying, hey, we are the reigning world champions. Put some respect on us. And clearly the Eldritch Hounds are going to have to do that. If I had to look anywhere in particular for the Hounds, I think it starts with Quig's selection. I've been a major detractor from the majority of the mage cast in the support role. Back in the day, I liked E-set support. Nowadays, I like Nox support. That's about it as far as mages are concerned. This Aphrodite, really good at winning harder, but the Eldritch Hounds have been struggling in the early game this set.
I mean, if I can even just throw potential out there. Feels like every time this Aphrodite and Yemoja are left open at the same time, one team picks the Aphrodite, instant snap block response to go with the Yemoja, and it just feels like every time the Aphrodite gets completely rolled over in matchups like this one. So maybe, at least for my personal opinion, if you're going to pick the Aphrodite, don't leave Yemoja open, because it seems that it's kind of that counter. I mean, you talked about like the Terrorids, the Yemoja was really good, something X likes to run out there. The Yemoja works really well up against the Aphrodite, so maybe if that Afro and Yemoja are left open, especially with how good Quig has been on the Yemoja for how well it's treated him.
He is a very good Yemoja player.
I am honestly shocked that he gave up the Yemoja to play the Aphrodite, given that he has not found a single win on Aphrodite yet this phase. And Yemoja, if I'm not mistaken, has done nothing but win for him. So maybe at least for my money's worth, might be time to put the Aphrodite back up. Maybe put it on the top shelf, come back to it another time, bring that Yemoja back out that's been doing so much winning for him.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that. There will have to be adaptations here for the Eldritch Hounds. Seems as if Hachiman first pick, just not an option with the Camelot Kings in first pick position. We'll get a good look at how the Camelot Kings have been prioritizing their selections as well, whether or not they agree with the Eldritch Hounds and that Hachiman is just that best selection for them. Otherwise, could see some differences in bans here. Camelot Kings with first pick out might try and leave up some of those massive priority selections. Things like Horus could start to work his way through P's and B's if the Camelot Kings can maneuver it that way. Otherwise, wouldn't be overly surprised to see a Guan Yu first pick. That god is just incredibly consistent and very, very good in the team fight. We'll see. The Eldritch Hounds, first time this set, I believe, find themselves in second pick. Yeah, thinking back, huh? It would have to be game 1 that they weren't.
Yeah, I believe it would have been game 1 if they did so. But we Circuit out Huang for the Camelot Kings, Hounds, the Martikros, and the Vamana ban. Not wanting to give that one over to either CaptainTwig or Variety, though we have been seeing a lot more of the Vamana go solo as of recent, maybe with some of the nerfs that have come its way towards the damage, towards the attack speed output that he has been receiving as far as those nerfs are concerned. Maybe it's now slotted him more towards that solo lane role. Yemoja banned by the Camelot Kings.
Let that be an indicator about what the Kings think about your Aphrodite, Quig. Don't let your ego get in the way. If I'm Quig right here, and I'm a disgusting degenerate, J-Mac, let me get ahead of it. I'm locking in Afro because they didn't respect my Afro. If you want to win, maybe stay off of it. The Camelot Kings left it available for a reason. Maybe they go for it themselves.
Maybe. I don't know, man. Just how good Terra's been as of recent. I would think Terra would be on the minds of both of these two teams, especially now with the Yemoja taken away. But when the Hell has been left open, the Hounds have gone towards the Hell a little bit more often than not. Guan Yu first pick. That's a change-up so far from every game that we have seen this set just about. As it's normally been Hachiman in that first slot. Camelot Kings instead want to get their solo priority.
So the Hounds now, if the last couple of games are any indicator, I would say it's Horus Hachiman here for them. Horus, of course, just a phenomenal pick. Great linear initiation, single target CC, good team fight sustain. But the primary strength is the mobility afforded to not only yourself, but your allies and allied minions with the To the Skies. Just makes it so difficult on base defense to know exactly where the Eldritch Hounds are going to be putting their pressure. Hachiman flanks it. Safe pick. Scales well. Good boxing in lane. Every time I say it, it feels a little bit less true because that god has not been doing a whole lot of winning, but I guarantee you he hits hard, he hits consistently, he hits from far away, and he is safe. So, on paper, Hachiman, great pick. In execution, just not doing a whole lot of winning.
Unless you're Netroid, then it's doing a lot of winning. Of course, that's true of any pick that just about the Oni Warriors pick up for themselves. Remember, 10-0 for their regular season. That's why we won't see them here during this playoffs.
You know what it reminds me of?
Straight to Masters. What's that?
It was either Season 8 or Season 9, early Season 9, late Season 8. Ho-Yi was the talk of the town for ADCs.
And he was doing real bad.
And he had a 20% win rate across like 30 to 40 games, but he was getting first picked every single game. Maybe Hachiman's in a similar position.
No, we're just having Ho-Yi 2.0 at this point. But along with the Guan Yu, a pick that we haven't seen too much of here in year 10, if the Ymir gets locked in for the Camelot Kings alongside a Merlin, and those first two picks by the Eldritch Hounds, that's something
astounding.
that easily deals with the Ymir. And a Bakasura, top 3 for the Eldritch Hounds to counter back up against the Camelot Kings. Something seemed to caught your interest there, Myth.
Yeah, the Ymir pick. It's crazy to see it this early in the draft. The primary reason I imagine we see it is that it's got great early game pressure. It is one of the hardest hitting, if not the hardest hitting Guardian at like level 1 through 3 thanks to the Frostbite passive. And it's got a good matchup into Hachiman ultimate, exact same as Guan Yu. He hops on the horse, throw up the wall, he's not going anywhere. But seeing it this early in the draft is just different. Even when we had seen Ymir earlier on this weekend, I believe it was a 4th pick overall for Inbound in his last set, and it was a great pick in that draft because of the lack of mobility from his opposition. But now that you've locked Ymir this early, the Eldritch Hounds have got options to look towards standard counter selections, things that can punish these immobile Guardians. My mind immediately goes towards maybe Nox as someone that could just lock him down and then have the Bakasura run him down, or just standard leaps so you don't have to concern yourself with that wall. Ymir is not a poor pick. I want to get ahead of that as well. I saw a lot of the discourse around the Ymir pick yesterday, and a lot of people were thinking, why is that happening? Ymir is very good right now, but he's a counter selection. He's not a pick him top overall or top 2 and say, well, they can't do anything about it, I'm Ymir. It's you need to have a draft built around your Ymir and a draft that doesn't play well into it. And as of now, Horus can struggle, but if an ally's nearby, he's not going to. Bakasura can leap over it or blink over it. Huang has the Celestial Flight. It's really just that Hachiman that's going to be struggling up against these walls.
With the Huang, taking it fast, quick at the bands, it will be Naja and Cernunnos by the Eldritch Hounds. Meanwhile, Mages banned away from BennyQ, the Discordia, and the Agni, which has led to the Huang ban, but now a Ratatoskr, something that CaptainTwig has gone to in the past, when maybe some of the other options have been taken away from him, and then something that we've really only seen from, Barra and Cyclone Spin? Yeah. Xbalanque for Jarcorrr. Something usually, again, reserved for some of the veterans of the league, but has been drafted overall at the very tail end. It's a match one wall with another one instead of a one singular wall. How about a full cage? Odin once more for the Eldritch Hounds.
Yeah, and this Odin cage is...
It's
going to find value, man. Xbalanque, Rat, Ymir, Guan Yu, all going to struggle. And even Merlin, to a certain extent. I know that leaping out of the cage, like, okay, I got out of it. There have been changes to Odin. You know, if you haven't been reading your patch notes for the last couple of years, Odin now, if you leap out of his cage, a spear chases you down and slams you. It does a good deal of damage. Helps out on that chase down as well. So I really do like this Odin selection for the Eldritch Hounds. Performed very well in lane in the previous match. I think the concern lies with this Bakasura and how well it's going to perform. Otherwise, this composition, strong for the Eldritch Hounds. I wonder what it is about this Xbalanque that attracted the Camelot Kings here. It's a very high kill pressure lane, to be certain, in the duo. Ymir and Xbalanque together, that's a lot of slow. It's a lot of damage. You can't exactly hide in your wave either, thanks to those piercing autos, essentially, thanks to Branching Bola. Could play very well into the boxing style of God that Hachiman is, too, but feels as if maybe there were some better options for the ADC player on the Camelot Kings. Either way, I think a very strong 5-stack from the Camelot Kings that plays well into that late-game team fight. You've got decent pick potential thanks to that Ratatoskr, that semi-global presence to play spoiler to some of those Bakasura ganks, or even try and chase out some of the less mobile targets. Chase out a Celestial Flight after Huang's done with it, and all of a sudden you're able to close that gap without taking too much damage. But this is a composition, I think, from the Camelot Kings that is very much so slated for the late game. Let's play around our 5-on-5. Whereas on the other hand, from the Hounds, it's good in the late game thanks to that Odin. That Odin's doing a whole lot of heavy lifting for this composition of the late game team fight. But I would like to see the Eldritch Hounds try and bring a little bit of emphasis to the early game with a draft like this. Anytime Bakasura is on your team, you kind of want to get things started around level 6, 7, somewhere in there.
I mean, I even think sometimes when you throw the Horus in there, I mean, that's a very aggressive support that you can throw in the dual lane, try and get active early, as you mentioned, with that ultimate, being able to transport not just your teammates, but even some of your minions around. Just try and get something going over in that dual lane. Because, I mean, I see Horus Hachi. That's a potential kill lane itself, but maybe difficult to go up against the Ymir and the Xbalanque. The Eldritch Hounds got to do a lot of work to stop the Camelot Kings. They need to stop them here if they want to keep Game 5 alive, and we'll see if the Hounds can do just that, or the Camelot Kings going to end this out in a 4th game. Let's jump right into game number 4.
It all comes down to this for the Hounds. If they don't make a stand now, well, then they're in the lower bracket, Charlie. It's maybe not the end of the world for them, but it is a rougher path, and it does lock them out of potential 1st, 2nd seeding going towards Masters. I guess they're technically locked out of 1st, 2nd already, considering Warriors and Ravens are sitting up there just waiting for everybody. And it seems like chat does not have their backs. 66% in favor of the Kings. You were just happy that Afro and Hell weren't picked in.
Yeah, I mean, cut them some slack. Afro and Hell available, both overlooked. The world is healing, Gore. and in this case, Quig on the Horus. That's a better look. There is much more beads burn. This was one of my main concerns. I was like, how does an Aphrodite burn beads? Trick question. She doesn't. Unless you're really worried about the kiss and the follow-up. Horus does it very well. And that means that Oathh's job's a lot easier. Of course, BennyQ can even do it. And Ducky back on this Odin. I needed the threat. Because Odin's all well and good. You can have 5 characters that can't get out of the cage. But you pick up a Phantom Shell and or you don't have follow-up for the Odin cage, and it doesn't matter. You get 2 5-man cages. If you're not killing them, if there's not damage in the cage, it's useless. But I think there is plenty of follow-up from BennyQ, from Coast, and of course from Oathhh, if that cage does come through. So definitely a better look. Now that I have said the good things about the Hounds, please allow me to highlight the great things about the Camelot Kings. Twig on the rat can get active early, pull beads off of BennyQ. The Ymir Genetics gets a lot of value on a few of these characters here from the Hounds, especially if they're trying to, run away. The Hachi, you can't just horse out when that wall is in play. That global presence, I gotta highlight the rat again. CaptainTwig can get halfway across the map in an instant with that ultimate.
There was, as you had mentioned, pressure. BennyQ lost the beads early. Could be an easy point of contention. Jarcorrr takes a little bit of poke over here. One thing that the Horus still provides, you had mentioned can peel and maybe burn some of those beads, does still have some healing in there, right? Maybe not as much as you're seeing from some of the others, but some is better than none. Something that the Kings are going to be lacking for a little while until Variety joins the fray and the fight. So definitely opportunities, I think, for the Hounds to find pressure, find kills, stir up some trouble. But it's the Bakasura, as actually mentioned on the desk, has to be able to get hands-on, has to look good for this to be maybe the convincing game they want it to be. You had already mentioned that Rat can get a hands-on early. Is there a pace that Oathhh has to set here for you to mark it as successful for the Hounds, or if they just make it to late game? You know what? I'm even going to cut them more slack. If they can make it to 12 minutes, not 4K behind, that's going to be an improvement.
That would be an improvement. But unfortunately for the Kings in this case, it seems like the Hounds have a much better late game composition. Not better than them, but they're fine with sitting back till late game. Yes. Rat falls off very hard. Bakasura is only going to get better until that late where he's going to win 1v1s, but it's a bit harder to dive in a true 5v5 setting because you have a lot of peel for the Bakasura. But, you know, if Oathhh catches Twig in the jungle, he should be winning that trade, especially from ahead. And it looks like a little bit of a scrap here. Ducky's out of mana once he throws the spear. That's probably going to be the end. But, forced to beads. Is the dart available is the question. No, the slow will not come through, and the dash is not going to connect. But Oathhh loses beads. That's what I'm talking about. Rat early is an absolute menace. And because of that, CaptainTwig and Variety step forward. They try and invade a buff, but they'll take a Chester just in case.
And it's a good call, right? The leap from Ducky and Oathhh immediately onto the blue, just to pull it back, just to create some space and say, all right, look, you can try to invade this. But if you do, you're going to have to really commit to it. And that might not be the best decision you could make. So like you said, they get a Chester. They get to fall back. Marginally happy with that kind of trade. Level 5 up for Ducky, cage down. Don't know that it's going to do too much. Gets a little bit of extra poke on Variety. Delays the heal out. Trelly, not yet a first blood. Makes Variety feel incredibly uncomfortable, but we're still sub 5 minutes. These towers, they do way too much for a dive to exist in this day and age.
Yep. Especially when you're starting Transcendence like Ducky is. Wants a little bit of damage, does not have the follow-up. Just wanted to force out Variety. And still a beneficial play, though. Variety did not have the teleport. Ducky says, hey, go back to base. I'm going to push this wave under your tower. You're going to lose a little bit of XP, a little bit of gold. And that's going to be worthwhile, because it's not like the cage is going to be used anytime soon. Unless CaptainTwig wanted to try and gank, which doesn't seem like he did. Has to the Cosmos, so still certainly could try and get active. BennyQ's beads already back up. That was something that could have been a pressure point, but you know, you pull beads that early on, you're probably not going to get your ultimate in time to make use out of it, just because it takes you a bit to find that farm, especially if you're trying to scrap for blue buffs and such. But I'm thinking Oathhh is not going to be the one to pull the trigger. He's around, see, he's ready to counter gank if possible, but he doesn't want to be the first one into a fight, not this early on, not just with Golden Blade. There's no easy targets to just run down. You know, you got both lanes. In this case, Genetics way too far up, so it looks like he will give Oathhh the opportunity. But a beautiful!
And they keep him alive just a little longer and allow themselves to come in and at least turn some things around. You lose Genetics, but you pick up a lot in the process. Oathhh, Quig, gone in the blink of an eye. Really, really well played by the Kings just to buy that time. Charlie, if it weren't for that wall, I feel like we aren't stopping there. BennyQ has to play carefully under the tower. Good aggression from the Kings, despite what felt like mispositioning out of Genetics.
Yep, Genetics walks up. He stalls for as long as he could. Twig is able to find the massive rotation. And that's what I'm talking about. I said Oathhh wouldn't want to get aggressive, but when you're this far out, you got to try and just drop everything onto Genetics. But the knock-up, the follow-up from Tingz, and the CC chain was good. So a 2-for-1. Something the Camelot Kings are okay with taking. Remember, the cage is already down. The Variety CC chain, beautiful triple stun. That lasted so long. See you later. I thought he was absolutely gone, but the fact that he stunned everybody was enough to guarantee he gets out. That was a beautiful play.
I could watch that all day. I mean, look, not just a 3-man stun, but at that health, I was with you. I thought he was a goner for sure. Even with the ult, I thought he was a goner. I didn't expect the instant stun, nor did I expect him to walk out. So, impressive, impressive, impressive. The ult's going to be gone for a little while. Maybe an opportunity for Oathhh to go over there. Some CC immunity stripped away from Variety. Safety in that taken away as well. But it's going to be a little more of a, just call it a brief pause. We've been seeing a wide variety of hunters. I feel like Hachi has been in every game.
Yep.
Because of his buffs.
He's nuts.
Kern still exists. Rom, I think, has been up there, and honestly kind of surprised sometimes when we don't see him valued a little higher from what we've seen out of him. But this Xbalanque has been like just on the edge, sometimes picked up, sometimes not. But he almost always looks good when doing so, and part of it's this. Jarcorrr has not been a part of any of these fights. Yet he's still got 2 assists. And level on par with Coast. Maybe it's not that big a deal, but it does make that small difference. I was going to say farm-wise, he's actually technically behind 400 gold right now. So even with his assists, it's maybe not making up for that deficit. Still, shutting off the lights is a huge advantage.
Yeah, there's an argument to be made that his team's winning because of a Twig can knock it up into the sky. Beautiful chain stun there. In the cripple goo and the lockdown. And that's the issue about getting caught out. He had the beads, he burned them. Did not matter. And he was just stuck in too much damage. But Jarcorrr, while he might be losing a bit of value with that ultimate in lane, he's helping out his team, right? The argument could be made that they have those 2 kills because the lights were off. Or at the very least helped out. So I think probably a good idea for Oathhh to stick around over on left just to try and deal with some of that pressure. And in this case, they end up catching a Ratatoskr at a shield buff.
Sometimes it's that easy. Especially when you burn the beads. Now it's going to be interesting to watch what Twig does over the next 2 minutes, 2.5. Where he can get aggressive. Evidently still around the blue buff. A little help from Variety. You don't need your beads. And did maintain the ult because of the CC chain. Genetics stunned out, knocked up, locked down in the jungle.
He's stuck.
And body blocked throughout all of that. Tried to use the wall. I actually appreciate that, just to nudge Oathhh to the side so he can cancel it and run away, but there's only so much you can do in a moment like that. The mechanic's not going to work out for him. Hounds finally making a stand here. Get the Gold Fury. Dangerous, dangerous territory. They're going to get aggressive on Jarcorrr as well. Xbalanque dashes away. Twig joins the fray. The damage is there, but not enough just yet. Oathhh still alive. 1 hit. That's all you need from Tingz, but they're unable to find it.
He flickered forward. He might be
Tingz
gone.
ain't able to do anything. Tingz needs the wall. And Genetics helps pay it off.
Twig
Twig
still got
finds Oathhh. And they're able to make up for a little bit. It's still a fury for the Hounds. The fight going well. And Trelly, finally, some fight back after 2 games of nothing.
Twig's got no beads, no blink, was able to dash out the stun. Well, I mean, that was disastrous for the Camelot Kings. They were able to pick up the kill and make Tingz out. That was still not a great series of events.
No.
I mean, Genetics gets trapped in a corner. Jarcorrr gets his beads pulled. He gets ran down. You lose the Fury. All good positioning from the Eldritch Hounds. This Bakasura, credit for 2 of the kills. And of course, VaporishCoast getting a kill is always going to help out. We've been talking about the safety of this Hachiman. Not for a lack of trying. Genetics has been looking to try and wall him off and look for some gank attempts, but it is still so difficult to try and keep this mounted archery locked in place. You can move very far. You have that increased movement speed. And of course, he uses the slow. Variety gets trapped under the tower. What? Well, he's got the sustain to make it out, and it looks like Ducky's going to be just fine. I'm amazed at that play. A couple more seconds, and he may have been trapped, but he was able to make it out and heal. He thought they had the damage to try and kill Ducky there, but Twig was just not in a position to follow up. Doesn't have Blink to close gap, and certainly didn't have the ultimate.
One of those moments, if that stun doesn't immediately stop your DPS, maybe you're finding something, but it's a heavy commit. Wall from Genetics, but again, just caught out. You remember when we talk about Ymir? And maybe we'll hold that thought for a moment. Oathhh has used the ult, forced Twig away. Horus is going up to the sky, crashing down onto Tingz. Tingz doesn't have a lot to do here. And it's going to be a simple cleanup crew from the Hounds, maybe even looking for a little more. Twig with the dash. Gets away the ult, almost enough from Benny. But Twig goes up into the sky. Variety comes back into this. Don't know if this is the fight you really want to take. Wow. It's going to be a conveyor belt of kills in favor of the Hounds. And so I'm going to go back to the point I was going to ask Trelly.
Yep.
Remember how when Ymir's locked in, we're on the desk, and we say there's one of 2 types of games you're getting from a Ymir? This is feeling like type number 2, the one that you don't really want to see. I mean, Genetics just several times now has been caught out and has had hardly anything to show for it. The fact that Quig feels brave enough to walk onto the tier 1 like that is amazing. Maybe a little bit of a misstep here. Stunned out by Twig. Should be an easy kill. So an overcommit from the Hounds. We're still talking 3,000 gold. Trying to push 4,000 in favor of the Chaos team here. It's little plays like that. That's the only thing that's been keeping the Kings alive in this.
Yep. And it's just unfortunate. Variety thought he was tankier than he was. Walks up to BennyQ, who has plenty of damage built already, and says, hey, I've got I've got Sickle. That's kind of defense, right? No, it's not enough. The magical defense is severely lacking. Even if you pop a heal, you're going to be getting shredded through, and that's pretty much what happened. So Variety goes down, of course. Trying to use the Runic Bomb to your advantage. Quig walks up, tries to get that tier 1 tower. Doesn't quite have the DPS for it. And loses his life or his troubles. But the Camelot Kings are certainly lacking in their engage department for now. Especially if Genetics keeps dying before the fight begins. It's going to get even more difficult. Because it usually is, hey, walk up, wall, easy kill. And actually, now that I see, Genetics upgraded the shell, but does not grab a Phantom Shell. Maybe Jarcorrr is going to get that Phantom Shell. And he says, hey, I'm just going to get the Fortifying Shell so we can stack them on top of each other. But that cage is still going to be an issue as the game continues unless someone picks it up.
Well, it's 7-4. Still 3,000, 3,500 separating these teams. Hounds positioned around the Fury. Doesn't look like there's going to be anybody nearby, but they're not going to commit to it. Not just yet. We're 13 and a half into the game, Trelly, and the pace of this one plus the last two has just been fast. I mean, it has been go get them, get kills, get blood, do whatever you can to try and play the map stronger. Now, all the first two, it was small, if any, answers back from the Hounds. Now, they're in the driver's seat. They're starting up an Oni Fury. Genetics isn't going to be able to do anything about this one. The team just has to let it lie. Figure out where to get the pressure. The only tower that's fallen, though, is the tier 1 in right, and it is in favor of the Kings. They knocked down the Hounds tier 1. So maybe some wiggle room for success in the macro plays. But we wanted an answer back. I mean, look, I'm going to be honest, after games 2 and 3, I needed some sign of life from the Hounds to see that they were still trying to play. I'm glad we're getting it.
Yep, there are signs of life. I mean, Quig just went up into the ultimate, tried to bring Oathhh over, decided against it, and they just dropped over on the dead Fury and said, all right, we'll retreat in this case. Jarcorrr hasn't even gotten a second relic yet. He is level 13, but has been pushed underneath this tower pretty heavily. I mean, look at the difference in Coast build. Of course, again, Jarcorr's got gold in hand, but like 3 and a tier 1 item to just, it's a full Executioner and the tier 1 Morningstar. If Jarcorrr did want to box up against Coast, which we saw already that he didn't, would not go well. But he's going to go back to base. I want to see if he picks up the shell here, because if he doesn't, there's going to be no way to get out of the cage, and that just seems like a misplay. And he doesn't. He gets Aegis. So the Camelot Kings are just going to break the cage. That's their plan. Which seems fine. They have some auto attackers. I mean, Jarcorrr will have enough attack speed, and if CaptainTwig and Tingz help out, it can be dealt with. But it's really the split second of being stuck that usually ends up netting the kills. It's not the, oh, we pop the Phantom Shield and run away. It's the, oh man, we have to sit here auto attacking for a full second. That's enough to lock in some good damage. And just make sure your positioning is out of whack. The Camelot Kings have a lot of catching up to do. And it doesn't seem like they're going to be the ones forcing anything. Jarcorrr spent a lot of time right here underneath this tier 2 tower. Even with Twig here, this would be a hard gank to pull off because of how safe Coast is.
Well, they're going to put some pressure on him. Dash from Coast. Man, I was thinking they'd get something. Beads. Maybe the ult, force him to be uncomfortable. No, instead, farm is the name of the game. 2 levels down for Jarcorrr, 3 for Genetics. Everybody else has some parity there. They need to find something here. Twig blinks forward, forces the ult out of Oathhh, and the beads out of Coast. Use Jarcorr's ult as well, just to try and find some balance in that, but Trelly, I don't know if that's considered balance. If the scales are tipped in one side's favor and they stay tipped in the other side's favor, you haven't done too much to equalize. It's about to be a 5-on-3 in mid. How confident are the Hounds feeling right now? Probably enough for a pyro, not enough for a tower dive. They're going to fall back. Pull Genetics forward, drop the cage, lock them in. They don't care about that kill, though. They turn their eyes towards Variety. And it's going to be a simple burn. Nobody's hit him yet. There's Coast with the last hit. Twig in the backline, chased down by Oathhh. Needs one more auto. Hits a minion for heal. Ult is available for Twig. He just needs time to channel it. Stun. Dash not ult. Good.
Yep.
Dash ult gets up to the sky. Hounds get the pyro. Twig goes back in. Twig's looking for the kill, and he reads it as well, gets a shutdown.
And he can't back, though.
Oathhh. Can't back, and so he is going to get caught out here. Has to play carefully, has to get this back
Coast has the ranged auto.
Coast doesn't get there in time. And to boot, he got the blue buff as well. I mean, it is just everything you would have wanted there for Twig.
That was nuts.
What a solid play.
I mean, he had to stun out the minion. Oathhh wanted to use the eat minion to heal. He stunned it out, used his 2, was able to confirm that kill and get back to base.
Man.
And it's unfortunate that a play like that doesn't net anything. It was just the Hounds got off Fire Giant, which is enough, right? They had the opportunity to say, hey, we're going to go for FG. Oh, there's a low health rat. We're going to go and run and get him. But still, the mental game of the Camelot Kings should be a little bit higher after Twig's able to pull off a play like that. Get the solo kill, get out, get the Gold Fury. Fire Giant is not being looked at yet from the Eldritch Hounds. So small wins, which again, is not going to shift the gold scale too much. Still certainly in favor of the Hounds, but the mental game could be taking a small hit there. You know, Oathhh probably doesn't feel good about getting solo when he's so far up. Those are the kind of things you have to think about. And I do want to see a grouping towards FG. Jarcorrr probably going to get his backstop, but will he decide to fight is the question. So far, he's posturing towards the north, but it's not going well. Oh, yeah, Jark realizes everyone's coming, and he's just trying to run as fast as he can away. Everyone's coming. Who's going to get it, Oathhh or Coast? Ducky is actually the correct answer was Ducky with the spear.
You asked A or B? It was a trick question.
Yep. And I should have known better.
3 people commit to that. Look, he's already down 2 levels. It was 3, actually, at the time that they start the gank. But I guess the good news is, right, Hounds, you now don't have Jarcorrr on the board. Ult is down. Saves the beads and Aegis. Genetics caught out one more time. No Phantom Shell means no way through. And the duo lane for the Kings. Killed off. Combined 0, 6, and 5. Able to maybe get a little bit done. But it's Fire Giant for the Hounds. And despite the kills maybe being closer than what we have seen, the game feels just as dominant. The Kings just trying to find any answers back that they can. 19-42 on the Fire Giant. Hounds immediately start getting aggressive towards right. Kings look to try and answer back with some towers of their own.
And it looks like Twig is still being chased down by Ducky. He's not going to get to back here. He will have to ult. Like, I don't know why he's pretending like he won't. He's going to have to ult here eventually. Looks like he might blink instead, though. Yeah, okay. He's like, all right, if I can save my ult over the blink, I will. So Ducky does not have the blink to chase him. So that is a little bit longer of a cooldown than the ultimate, but you still have it for a possible Phoenix defense. So I think that was the mindset there from Twig. Hey, if my team needs me to engage, I'm going to engage. Blink, who cares? I'm probably going to die if I ult in anyways. But I've got good damage built. It's good CC. And hey, BigManTingz is able to hit level 20 before just about anyone besides Coast on the side of the Hounds. So that's a big deal. You still have this Merlin. Very easy to keep waves out of your Phoenix. He's got great clear, great AoE damage. These are the kind of things that could still help stall here for the Camelot Kings, because I do think their comp, besides the Rat, is going to just improve. The Rat does have a fall-off point, but everyone else just wants this game to go a bit later. Xbal's got the hard carry potential. Genetics is only going to get tankier. And of course, BigManTingz is only going to hit a little bit harder on this Merlin. Those are the kind of things they have to think towards, but they got to back up as well. Oathhh is waiting for an ambush, but he's actually by himself. No way he wants to go in here.
Wall, decent for a second. Leap, a little bit better. Man, and that's the downside. You know, the Ymir wall, in comparison to the Odin walls, just not getting as much done. Twig forced to ult. Might go in. If you get the knock-up onto Oathhh, it could be huge here for the fight. Variety kills off the jungler. That might be massive for them. Twig has to dash away, but did get some damage out there. A 1-for-none pick for the Kings.
Coast is getting Phoenix?
Is huge. Coast is getting Phoenix. That might just be bigger. So what are you going to get if you're on right and you win this fight? It's a Pyromancer and a Pyromancer alone. Now the left side Phoenix burned on the side of the Kings. Pyro picked up. No one's able to stay and grab the Runic Bomb, though. They have to back away. Quig's in the sky. Bringing Benny with him. CC lockdown.
Here comes Coast.
There, jump
Oh, the
forward.
wall.
Ducky has a lot. Oh, and Ducky's able to help lock down another wall. Keeps Coast out of the fight a little bit longer, but Genetics is still low. Genetics is gone with the help of BennyQ. Charlie, they're running it down on right. They're locking BigManTingz away. They're sending him to the ground. Coast is low, but just not killed off. Twig dives deep, tries to get something. At least Variety's able to pull one back here. But more so because of the Phoenix than anything else. Ducky's gonna die. The bird dies. Dash forward from Coast. Full on deicide for the Hounds. Charlie, it's not as clean as they would have liked.
No.
But they get the right side bird.
Ducky did not mean to die to that tower. I saw it in his face.
He's laughing, though.
He's still laughing about overstaying one extra Phoenix shot. But at this point, it was close, right? I mean, there were some low health bars. I think tanking that one up, not necessarily a bad call. Oathhh. Oathhh dropped ult on Oni Fury and couldn't even do it. So he has to reset. What are the Hounds doing? Well, I mean, hey, it works out, right? You get two birds, you get the Oni Fury anyways. And everything was looking so good for the Camelot Kings up until that point. Not really, I mean, this whole game in favor of the Hounds, but they had some good picks. If Coast didn't get that left side Phoenix, everything was showing up Hounds. But then it was overstaying your welcome. The ult comes in from Quig, bringing the whole team into the skies, and of course, Coast comes from left side Phoenix all the way into that fight to make sure they're able to get the dive and get two Phoenixes off that Fire Giant. And now it's back up. The other towns have their opportunity. They can go in for FG. It doesn't look like it's going to be too contested. Remember, two Phoenixes are down. So how are you even going to walk up at this point?
Well, we'll find out. But the answer is just not at all. They won't walk up. Fire Giant seems pretty easily done by the Hounds. Your carries are both 4-0 and 5. At least the backliners, BennyQ, Coast, untouched so far. Compared to the other side, when you look at the duo lane at least, 0 and 8. An unfortunate showing right now for the Kings. Jarcorrr does finally catch up in levels. We'll see whether or not that can make a difference. Fire minions on right, going to be pouring in soon. Mid Phoenix is the only place to go outside of just the Titan room. So the Hounds are going to get aggressive there. 10,000 gold up. Approaching 25 minutes in game, Trelly. Coast just wants to get as many autos off as he can. Loop around from Ducky and from Oathhh. And again, Fire minions on right, putting in a little bit of work, keeping Twig distracted. Ult available for the Ratatoskr. And at this point, available for almost everyone except for Oathhh. The most intimidating staring contest. You got to break at some point.
Yep. I mean, they're just waiting for Fire minions because Ducky can find a cage pretty easily here. He finally jumps in. It looks like the siege begins, and the Phoenix is already gone.
Yeah, the lockdown's there. Wow, they force them. They finally get out of this cage, but they have such low health bars. Jarcorrr makes it back to the fountain. Is able to survive. Twig, no way is he thinking about going in here. Yeah, jumps the other direction. Low health bars on Coast and Oathhh. Definitely tantalizing.
Oh my goodness.
Twig, oh my god.
Those weren't crits, by the way.
Almost turned around. Those are just autos from Coast. Force the jungler back. Should get the Phoenix the Ymir wall. Gonna buy some precious seconds. Ducky into the back line. Looks for Jarcorrr immediately. Phoenix does go down. Coast marching forward. And after what I just saw against Twig, I don't want to be under the ire of the Hachiman right now. Fire Giant. Power play only exists for another minute. Trelly, they've got Fire minions in every single lane, but they don't feel confident in their ability to get into the base. That's one of the benefits of Merlin is this defense. And even though it hasn't saved the Phoenixes, it's at least keeping the Kings alive right now.
This might be the overstep. The Eldritch Hounds sticking around. Ducky does have the cage back up. This Phoenix will drop down for free, but what else do the Hounds look for? Do they just retreat after? I think that's the correct call, and they will. Okay, they don't make an overstep. They say, hey, all three Phoenixes down, and we're going to head on back to base. There are some power spikes that the Camelot Kings were really close to. You know, like CaptainTwig really wants what appears to be a spectral armor because every time he gets near Oathhh, he gets crit twice and says, okay, don't like that. I wish I had some extra defense against those crits. BigManTingz, of course, wants the Obsidian Shard. help for some extra percent pen, or the Spear of the Magus. Either one will work. And those are the things that the Camelot Kings are trying to build towards. They've got one more chance to make a defense, and I do not think it'll be at Enhanced Fire Giant. I think it'll be underneath their own tower. I mean, underneath their own well, really. They don't have a tower, they don't have a Phoenix, they have nothing to try and make a defense for. They need to find a pick off of CaptainTwig's ultimate and then get out safely. And it's not easy to do. Especially, you called it out, and it's still true. 4-0-5 for both of the carries, BennyQ and VaporishCoast. They are positioning well, they have plenty of peel, and they do lots of damage, and that has become an issue. It's been a growing issue that has not been, there's been no answers for, from the Camelot Kings, that is. Because Twig can't really get to the backline safely. He's 4-2, been having a pretty solid performance on the Rat. But the issue with the Rat, of course, is once you get that fall off, you're essentially a CC bot. You ult, you stun, and you hope your team has the follow-up. And if you're building into Spectral Armor, he's not going to do any more damage. He has reach to the cap until he gets some power potions. He's just trying to make sure that Tingz and Jarcorrr can finish some of these kills.
It's a rough spot to be in right now if you're the Kings. Feeling the same shoes that they've put the Hounds in 2 times in a row. Fire Giant, not quite enhanced, still a minute and a half shy of that. Does not matter to the Hounds. You've still got 3 Phoenixes down. Fire minion waves slowly but surely working their way up. So Trelly, once again, we begin this trek towards the base of the Camelot Kings. With the real question at this point just being, how do you crack this eggshell? Because it does feel fragile. We'll see. 5-on-5 in the Titan room. Maybe needing to wait, as you had mentioned, on fire minions to feel confident in their abilities to try and get in here. Oathhh is hanging out on right with the fire wave. The other 4 are in mid around the Phoenix itself. Mid Phoenix is going to be spawning in soon. He gets the gauge onto Genetics. The wall is keeping him alive, though. The damage isn't able to follow through, but BennyQ just goes over the wall. Oathhh finds his way into Twig. Jarcorrr is low. They just have to figure out where they want to dump their damage. Fire minions are here. They use the Horus ult. They're jumping around, and it's not looking as clean, but they turn their eyes towards the Titans. That's what you need to do. No, the turnaround. It's BigManTingz with a double kill. A massive turnaround right when they need it. They still get the mid Phoenix. The Hounds are going to back away, but they do not win this game. At least not yet. Not yet. The left side Phoenix will spawn in here. Tingz was doing so much damage, and of course Jarcorrr with those laser auto attacks was able to grab it, but it doesn't look like Tingz has the cooldowns to keep this bird alive. Finally, it drops, and Quig and Coast are still here. They're waiting to see who's going to step forward. Are they going to go in for this Phoenix, or maybe even the end call? Oathhh is still around, and remember, that Titan is very low. The Phoenix will drop. You don't have CaptainTwig for any chase down potential. I mean, the only issue now is, of course, your Titan is extremely weak. It's a great defense there from the Camelot Kings, but now you have to ward up. You have to worry about the Horus ultimate. You're not just going to go in when the enemy team knows, though. The Eldritch Hounds, I don't think, can just Horus ult into base, because BigManTingz and Jarcorrr will be waiting with all of their damage there. However, if the Camelot Kings don't know they're flying in and are out clearing waves, that's a different story. You're going to have to ward up everywhere to make sure you know exactly where Quig is at any given moment. And it seems to be their call. You can see they're all pushing up sort of like a spider web, making sure they have vision everywhere on the map. It's low percentage, but the Camelot Kings still can mount a defense if they play this correctly. But the Eldritch Hounds, I mean, they can do whatever they want. They can walk up, they can wait for EFG, they can get runic bombs, they can push waves. Any of which is going to work out. I mean, CaptainTwig, unfortunately, in that fight, did not get much value. Once again, Genetics dies because no Phantom Shell. And now he's getting caught out again as the Eldritch Hounds siege forward slowly. I think this is the call. Just walk up. Don't ult in. Don't group up. Just push wave slowly. Minute left until the fire respawns. Just a few seconds left until it disappears off Oathhh, Quig, Coast. There it goes.
Right side bird gone.
The right side bird's going to be gone. Oathhh has ult. That, honestly, to me, if it weren't for all the warding that we see, Oathhh could probably just walk in and end the game. But you have to do it without getting caught. And that's always the hard part here. Fire Giant, when it does spawn in, will be enhanced. That's assuming that you get there. Right now, it's a weird grouping on left, of all places. Oni Fury is the target for the Hounds. Of course, the defending world champions right now. Up in the set 2-1. And 32 minutes into this, a pretty massive question's being asked, Trellians. Whether they can do anything, they get the pull on the coast. They get the kill. They needed that one to go their way. Now, what can they find afterward? The pickup needs to be there. Ducky jumps in. They've got a lot of damage on the Hounds. They kill off Tingz, but Oathhh is going to fall in response. So far, 2 for 1. Ducky trying to run away. They need to close the gap. They need to find some of these kills. They need to get that EFG, but they aren't able to chase him down. Benny does too much damage. The 6-1 and 5U Huang keeps him from coming forward. Fire minions pull the Kings back as well, and you're still in a position. I mean, maybe not the most damage. A fight necessary for the Kings, Trelly, but still not enough.
This is what I was talking about, though. I mean, Jarcorrr and BigManTingz are doing so much. Coast gets pulled off the horse. Immediately has to try and escape, but Variety is able to close gap. And unfortunately, I'm pretty sure if the Camelot Kings somehow kept that right side bird alive, they might be confident going into this position, because CaptainTwig's not clearing fire minions right now. He's probably sitting around EFG. Jarcorrr is able to push up like 2-3 waves. They've got plenty of time to step up to EFG once that left wave is pushed up, because minions are already going through mid. But because that right bird is down, they're spread too thin. I don't think they can afford to step up to an enhanced fire giant, so they're going to have to stay back and go for the defense call once again. And the Eldritch Hounds are out, they have the mind games. Where are they taking this Horsel? That's always the question. You go into the Titan, you go into a bird, are you just walking forward like you did last time? Whatever you are doing, you're going to do in the next 80 seconds, because if not, BigManTingz gets both of his relics back up, and it gets a lot harder. But for now, Merlin is an easy kill if anyone is able to get close.
I've got to give them credit on the side of the Kings, because this is a game that admittedly about 10 minutes ago I thought we only had 3 minutes left. They've been able to hold on. We'll see if they can continue to do that.
There it comes.
Door open. Quig goes up. He's not bringing everybody, though. Goes into the back with Ducky.
They reset it.
And they reset. Nobody joins. They don't have the damage. Mid Phoenix is up. Damage is going to be there. Quig may actually lose his life because of that. No, gets the dash over the wall.
What was
just
that?
In time. They're not going to get either of the Phoenixes. A weird call from the Hounds. And Trelly, you were saying something about the mind games. Now you have to be wondering what's weighing on their mind.
I have to guess it was, let's go, let's go, let's go. No, 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 no. You know, someone just said it last second. They all decided to listen. They backed off. I mean, once the lights went out, that was my guess. They saw Jarcorr's ult, and they said, nope, we are not diving into the enemy well without being able to see. Probably a smart call. Twig, nowhere to be seen. His Titan is this low, and he's clearing right minions, whereas the rest of the team trying to keep the mid bird alive. That Titan's not going to respawn, and Ducky does have EFG. He'll be able to grab this. So unfortunately for the Camelot Kings, your Titan is not regenning. That HP is not going to go up, unless, of course, the Hounds reset it once again. But they're just in such a dominating position. Blinks in on a Twig, gets the cage. No follow-up, though.
Some damage actually turned around onto him. Mid Phoenix does go down. It pulls the attention of the Kings away.
Variety missed ult?
From their defense. Like you said, Variety misses his ult.
Oh, this is over.
Oathhh has ult and Blink. Could do a lot here. Twig goes to the back, looks for Coast, isn't able to find it. Instead, turned around. They do get the kill onto the carry, but they lose one in the process. All you have to do is focus the Titan, but they're unable to do it.
It again.
Gets pushed out. The Kings, I don't know how they're doing it, but they're still holding on. 3 Phoenixes down perpetually for 15 minutes, it feels like. But Trelly, they're still standing. They're still finding kills. And they're still forcing the Hounds to rethink their approach.
And the Hounds haven't left. They are still sitting here. I said, oh, it's over. It should have been. The damage, Oathhh said, hey, I'm going to start hitting the Titan. Unfortunately, BennyQ couldn't close gap. He couldn't get close enough. Coast is dead. So they don't end up putting any DPS onto this Titan, and it's been reset again. The Titan is no longer in, oh, it's just over territory. It is still pretty healthy. Ducky does have his ultimate back up. Catching Jarcorrr would be nice, but look, there's no follow-up. Look around. No one is going to be getting here to Jarcorrr. He can dash away just fine. That Titan is going to be okay, but the right side bird is the target. It's getting weak, but it hasn't quite dropped yet. Remember, Coast is still dead, and CaptainTwig's going to be up in 3. The Hounds might have to retreat here because they are now at a disadvantage. And we might be looking at another enhanced fire giant. Hey, so now we get to see my theory, though. I said the Camelot Kings would be in a decent spot, feeling confident if that right side bird didn't die, and this time it didn't. So will they step up for enhanced fire giant, or will they just play the Titan sit game. Considering how the Hounds have been pushing, I would think they just sit Titan.
Yeah.
I mean, it has
working so well.
It has not been working. So if that's your case, and the Camelot Kings feel this confident, save up for 3Ks, and just park it right underneath your well. Why would you leave if this is how the siege goes?
Speaking of 3Ks, bought by damn near everybody in the Hounds just now. A lot of power potions. BennyQ does not pop his. Everybody else drops theirs so they can get some wards, some coverage. Enhanced Fire Giant, 20 seconds away, and the answer to your question. Well, maybe even more interesting, the pings I just saw around Quig. Pushing up the fire minions on left. The ping specifically calling for him to loop around towards the back of the FG. Maybe he just go mid. Maybe he's going to look for a fight. The rest of the Kings go forward. Variety's caught out. Goes in the ult. Forces BennyQ's safety. Finds the stun onto Quig. Quig's half health. Jarcorrr goes in. Jarcorr's getting the autos. Good wall from Genetics. Locks down the support.
Here
and
comes
keeps
Quig.
Up. There's Quig up into the air. Where is he going to go? BennyQ coast. Neither is the opportunity. Jumps away. One pick. Sometimes that's all you need. The Kings feeling
yeah,
a
this
surge
is huge
of
if they just get out. I mean, you get both Phoenixes up essentially off that pick as long as you keep the Hounds from going in for an EFG. It's actually the Kings who are stepping forward. They know they've got time on the left side wave, and Quig taking care of middle. They are going to go for the pull. Oathhh has Blink, has ultimate. Fire Giant's not shredding too quickly.
Secure. That's the only issue that we're going to be facing. Could be Genetics ultimate. But is that something you want to risk right now? They're going to keep DPSing. You can see Oathhh looping around.
Ooh.
Good damage. They take Hound, and they get the Enhanced Fire Giant to boot. Now it's just staying alive, getting something done. BennyQ's low. Jarcorrr trying to lead the way for his team. Ducky using the ult defensively this time. Oathhh might get locked down. Tings is looking for something. Oathhh tries to turn it around, but the Aegis is too strong. So much for the Kings is going right. And they have to get back to base, though. Defend against these minions. Trelly backs against the wall perpetually for, at this point, 14 minutes, 19 minutes. They've got the left side Phoenix. They've got their middle Phoenix. They've got their right Phoenix. And against all odds, the Kings have 5 with Enhanced Fire Giant as we start to push towards 40.
Yep, unfortunately, that cage was just not the call. They got Variety stuck, but Coast wasn't there. That's your best burn for this tanky Guan Yu. And now it's the Camelot Kings who get to siege forward. CaptainTwig is still pushing over left, but Oathhh is gone for 25 more seconds. There's no blink here from Ducky. He's going to have to leap in if he wants to find a cage. And already Coast takes so much damage, he's going back to base.
Phoenix, all it needs is a couple more autos. The cage gone. Everybody sitting back. Oathhh not back for another 10. Tier 2s still up in left and in right. So Phoenix siege capabilities on those limited. Minute 40 on the power play. Primal Fury seems to be the call right now. Full builds for everybody, upgraded relics all around. I mean, Trelly, we have hit the late game with the late game. And the Kings, in that one moment of sieging, looked at the Hounds and said, we'll show you how it's done.
Yeah, we just walked in and we took what we wanted because we can. And again, Oathhh was down. Now he's back up. That could help a little bit, but this Bakasura gets a little bit more difficult to dive once it's late game because everyone turns towards Baka. He's got no Aegis. He just gets burned. I would argue getting close to Tings is a death sentence with how much damage he's able to do in his CC, especially when Genetics is around with that shell. Whereas CaptainTwig, of course, has that range stun, can use his ult, and he stays away. He's got much less 100 to 0 potential. He is going to be doing less damage, but the CC and the follow-up, he's just saying, hey, Tings and Jarcorrr will carry. I don't need to be the one doing all that damage. BennyQ, still top of the damage charts for sure. He's been having a good performance, but it's not enough. As Twig actually stepped over a ward, Oathhh picked up the red buff, and I was going to say, does he get caught out in a 1v1 situation? Looks like no, as the rest of the Hounds are forced back to base. Yeah, Jarcorrr, I'm seeing him auto for 1,000. He has no crit. Like
he
this is
3-tapped the tower.
Yeah, this is just like a full damage shred pen build on Xbalanque. That's kind of the benefit of letting him get late game. I kind of miss his old passive for things like this. If you guys haven't been playing Smite for a while, Xbalanque used to be, if he got kills, it gave him stacking power. So you could actually roast your teammates for taking your kills, and you'd say, hey, I needed that. It's for my power. And then they would just give you last hits, and you could just solo carry a game if you got some kills. In this case, it works a bit differently, but you still get that extra power. from doing some damage. And that's why we're seeing Yark just shred everything. You let the X-Ball get online. And what's this call?
No wards for the Kings on left. They are back in base, though. Are you going for a Phoenix? You have to knock a Phoenix down. They're going to see him, and they've got the numbers. They're all here for the defense, and they're going to go forward. BennyQ half health immediately. The Kings trying to chase this down. Lights are off, and there's the dunk from CaptainTwig. It's forcing the relics. BennyQ tries to walk away, cannot escape, and the cage. It's doing a lot of work. It's getting things done, but it's not enough. Jarcorrr in the back. A lot of damage taken, a lot of damage dealt, and it's exactly what they need. Horus up in the sky. Not able to find too much here. Quig moves about 10 feet forward. Coast and Ducky have the health bars, but you're down 2 members. You lost Twig on the other side. EFG's respawned over on right. That Phoenix stays up, and now the ward coverage, it's fully there from the Kings.
Okay, Gore. I'm a little confused.
Okay.
Because what we just saw was the Eldritch Hounds group up for an aggressive play, go into the Phoenix, and do a good bit of damage. Could they not have just done that to the Titan when it was at 2,000 HP?
Yeah.
Like, if they wanted to make their stand, why is it now when they're in such an unfavorable map state? They end up trading 1 for 2, but all you have to do is like 2k damage to a Titan. This is way different. EFG should be going to the Hounds, but there is still potential. Ducky stepping forward, the wall will body block, and the Camelot Kings get a beautiful stun, and Coast is gone.
Yeah, Ducky drops the ult, but again, it's exactly what you said. You're locked in there with the Kings. They break through what's left. Coast in the penalty box for a full minute. Oathhh is going to be back. BennyQ is going to be back. Well, once Jarcorrr gets here, this tower, it doesn't exist by the time he does step up. Phoenixes should be a little worried. Mid Phoenix is going to respawn.
I want to see if he shreds it with his ult and just like 2 autos.
I was thinking the exact same thing in there.
Bonk, 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 bonk. So much damage. And it doesn't matter. Right side bird gone. Are you grouping up and going for mid? Might as well. You can do whatever you want at this point. The Camelot Kings are under very little pressure. Look at the relics on the sides of the Hounds. BennyQ's got none for 30 seconds. He doesn't want to get anywhere near the Camelot Kings.
You can't step into this fight. Have to give the shout out to the Kings as well. Not just this immaculate play. They were down by well over 10,000 gold. They've taken that lead back. Not that gold means too much right now, but that is a massive, massive hill to overcome. And they've now knocked down the mid Phoenix as well. And how the tables have tabled. The Hounds earlier in the driver's seat with 3 Phoenixes down. Now forced to show what their defensive chops are going to look like. 2 birds gone. Oni Fury to boot in favor of the Kings. Trelly, a quick reset. Still a few minutes on this power play.
It certainly is. I mean, you know, if I've learned anything from sieging, defending, etc., having 2 birds down is not the guaranteed win. Having 3 birds down is not the guaranteed win. But there is a big difference maker, and it's that the Kings have been so decisive about their siege. It has been go in, get bird, leave. Go in, Jarcorrr, laser, 4 autos, leave. Like, it's very simple. You can write it down on a piece of paper. The Hounds are like, okay, Quig's going to go to the sky, Ducky's going to go with them, but we're all going to bail. Jarcorr's going to ult, we're going to die, we're going to leave. That can't happen. You have to have one singular goal. Even if it's a bad play, sticking to it wholeheartedly is better than the wishy-washy. And that is what has put the Eldritch Hounds in this position. Still up in kills, 2017, but the map state's certainly not favoring them. As we see a grouping here. Right side, Oni Fire Wave pushing into the Titan, and those things swing. And they're going to go in for the siege. Bonk, bonk, bonk. 4 autos will do it. Phoenix is gone. Jarcorrr can do no wrong.
Set point. Twig doesn't make it up into the air, though. Gets caught out in mid. 75 seconds for his respawn. It might just be what puts an end to a potential base break. Maybe at this point, the base is broken. Titan kill for the Kings. Instead, they back up. Good damage. Ducky's still chasing. But you have to imagine that's going to stop sometime soon. Fire minions, again, on the Titan of the Hounds. And then regular minions coming in on the other side.
They are leaving them.
But they're marching straight down mid. No way they think that they can go for the Phoenix. The damage numbers, I mean, you've got an advantage without Twig. They're going to step forward. Clear away.
He has to go back. That wave is like, wait, that wave has hands. Hold on, we got to go defend it. And it looks like because it's a 4v4, they shouldn't feel too confident stepping up here. With Ducky teleporting in, that could be different. But that wall is going to slow down a lot of this push, and Twig's up in 20. The chase down is going to be severe. The Eldritch Hounds have to make a call, and it looks like they got to back up.
Yeah, so far, defense, just the Odin, he's not clearing as well either, so taking a little bit of time, keeping the minions preoccupied. A Phoenix play, maybe gone wrong, Oathhh, and the rest, ooh, they're laying an ambush.
The tables are exactly flipped as what we were 20 minutes ago. 3 Phoenixes down and a 2k HP Titan, and it is now the complete opposite. But the Hounds are pulling ahead.
So do you think 20 minutes from now? Like, where are we going to be? At this point, 47 minutes again. Set point. If the Kings can win this one, double freeze, Twig in the back,
get it.
And they're finding a lot of damage. Hounds get the Fire Giant, but they're losing a lot in the process. Horse chase Horse, and Coast stunned out, killed off. They're going to lock him down. BennyQ goes up, comes down, frozen immediately. Not a lot you can do about that one. Double kill. Let's make it 3 for CaptainTwig. The Hounds fall apart. The Kings pull it back. Oathhh has to do something miraculous here with Ducky to make it work. Cage
got Blink.
Gets dropped. What can they do? The damage is just too much. From the brink of defeat, from 3 Phoenixes down, the Kings pull it back, and in 48 minutes, win game 4 and take this set.
Yep, and everything was as a unit. They went in for the Fire Giant, sure. They didn't get it. Who cares? You're this far into the game with a 2k HP Titan. As long as you group up, beautiful stun, pull the beads off of BennyQ. He's going to die immediately. I mean, the Camelot Kings. I got to give credit to CaptainTwig. He did get poked out. He did get caught a few times by Oathhh, but you're not going to win that 1v1 pretty much ever if you catch a Baka in the jungle. I think his ults were on point, the walls from Genetics, of course, and BigManTingz and Jarcorrr kept this game alive. If they didn't farm as well as they did, if they didn't have the damage that they had online, their defenses would have never worked. I mean, it's impossible to keep that many members out of your Titan unless the Merlin and the Xball are hitting as hard as they were.
Look, after games 2 and 3, I wanted something spicier.
Yeah.
I even said the same to you. I was just like, I don't know how I feel about it. 20 minutes where you know at 5 minutes where the game's going to go. Well, the Kings give us that one here.
Yep.
I mean, amazing comeback for them. And a victory in this set, 3-1. So congratulations to them. Congratulations to us. That was a fun game to watch. Congratulations to you, the viewer, for hanging. Sorry, man. Look, the camera's over there. You can't be doing things to my left. We're going to reset and go over to the desk to break this down.
The first 20-25 minutes of game number 4 was all Eldritch Hounds.
Did
and
he
then,
hit him? I missed it.
Yeah, he got the recovery there.
Oh, okay,
they got the
cool.
fist bump,
Nice.
so they got that one through. But the first half of this game was all Eldritch Hounds. I mean, this is a complete lead driven by the Eldritch Hounds, knocking on the door of the Titan, knocked down all 3 Phoenixes. We're pushing into the throne room. And the Camelot Kings, they hold once. Eldritch Hounds come back in. Camelot Kings hold twice. And then from that point on, the Camelot Kings are in the driver's seat of this game, knocked down all 3 Phoenixes. And they're the ones who win out game number 4 and the setup against the Eldritch Hounds.
Yeah, the whole time I was waiting because I'm looking at the Titan. I see it at around half HP. It gets down to like a third HP. It's a quarter HP. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I'm sure the Hounds are just so thankful that they've got a Horus on their team and they could just jump in there and maybe just blow up the Titan. And it just was never attempted. It seemed like try to break the base the old-fashioned way, walk in. Doesn't work against the Camelot Kings and that base defense, the composition built for it. BigManTingz puts in a whole lot of work on all of these base defenses. So difficult to work your way through all that persistent damage on field that Merlin tosses out there. And the Camelot Kings have always been a team that forces their opponents to earn it. And if you aren't coming perfect, if you aren't ready to close it out, the Camelot Kings will do it to you, and they'll do it quickly, turn it around very fast. Felt like they were only in the driver's seat for a moment before they were able to close this one. The Eldritch Hounds, that's tough. That's a tough loss to take, man. But fortunately for the Hounds and their fans, double ELM weekend, we'll see them again.
We'll be seeing the Eldritch Hounds again, and we'll be seeing the Camelot Kings again now with a victory for themselves. Came in with a bye day on their first one, didn't have to play the very first day of the playoffs. Now come in against the Eldritch Hounds, who've got a little bit of experience through the tournament, but find themselves a win there. 48,000 player damage for BigManTingz. A lot of those coming from those big siege defenses at the Titan room.
He was pouring damage.
32 minutes into the game. That's when the Merlin is in that full swing at this point. You see it reflected in those highlights on those defense where BigManTingz pulling out these double kills, these near triple kills for himself to help out on that defense. And then CaptainTwig as well, even though it's 6 deaths in the column for the Ratatoskr, was doing some big damage towards the late game. I mean, even look at Genetics at the beginning of the game. I mean, he was 0-3, 0-4 going into some of these Titan sieges. Takes a couple of deaths throughout the game, but really steps it back up on this Ymir. It started to look like the 0-8 Ymir game to start out, but soon turned into the 0-8 and now, 20, 30 assist style of Ymir game by the end of that one. After a long game like that, the player's a little bit tired. I'm also sure the mental and the coach is a little bit tired. And we've actually got our coach for the Camelot Kings standing by for the interview.
Yeah, that's right. I've got Biggie, and I kind of asked you before this, but now we have to get it on camera because who cares about game 1? We got to talk about game 4. 20 minutes, and we were even mentioning this. You were already kind of thinking, okay, what is our draft for game 5? What kind of things are we going to need to change? What is it that swapped? You can hear the comms of your guys. Like, what is it that kept them in there?
I think we've had a lot of practice kind of defending, and the way the meta is right now, I think you can win with 3 Phoenixes down. You just have to buy into the fact that you want to win, and I think that's what won us. I think no one really tilted. We just thought, okay, if we can defend the Phoenix, let them make them sick. If they just play it correctly and they win, then they win. That's life. But, play as well as we can and play. The only way we could have won was to play that way. And we did, and we just played better than them in that stage.
And after game 2 and 3, right, which was very convincing in your favor, the first 20 minutes, maybe 25, maybe even 30 overall of game 4, what was going wrong? Like, what caused such a chasm to be created?
I think they got 7 picks. I think we didn't draft correctly. We're still, I think, in a phase where we've lost a lot recently, and we're not really all on the same page, kind of out of the game, meta-wise, and then also like a little bit in the game. So I think there's just a slight kind of, some people want to pick something, some people don't. Some people want to fight this, some people don't. And we just didn't make a decisive decision to either fight them or give things up, and we got picked too often.
Well, you held on. I do want to, I guess, roll back. Games 2, games 3, very dominating, very controlling, very much, I guess, what people have come to expect out of the Kings, right? Everything just like farm-wise, kill-wise, fight-wise seemed to be on the same page, much like you were saying, has maybe been the struggle over the last few weeks. What kind of team can we expect from this point forward? Are we expecting the clean wins, or do you think that there's still going to be a couple of those struggles you just mentioned?
I think we'll still have some struggles for sure. It's a long way. There's a difference between doing well this week and then beating teams like Ravens or the Warriors especially. I think it's a big positive for us. If we were to lose today, I think that would have been very tough. But a win like this is huge for us because it kind of just...
Especially like that.
Gives us a bit of momentum. And now we have a platform to build on, because especially when you're losing a lot, it's hard to know if what you're doing is even correct. So now it's just a bit of justification and something to build on now.
Well, it's a huge win here, a huge comeback in that final game. I'm sure not just tired, but probably happy at this point for the entire team. Congratulations, man, on the win. It was a fun set to watch.
Thank you.
We'll go back to the desk to continue breaking it down.
A big win for the Camelot Kings to help them lead into not just the remainder of this week, but as mentioned, even towards the Masters. Finding a win now is definitely much better for the team, and knowing that they've got that potential to find wins. Remember, because you got to take back to the beginning of this one, it was a 4-0 start for the Kings, then a 1-5 end for the last half of their first phase here. So getting a win now, definitely a nice little stepping stone for the Camelot Kings for the future. We can take a look at the bracket and the future of the Kings and what the remainder of their path will look like for this event. Now awaiting the winner of the Leviathans and the Gladiators to square off in their final matchup that will decide first and second seed out of this event, moving up in towards the Masters land. Now, lost by the Hounds, they'll have to take on, well, the team that put them down onto the other end of the bracket, the Styx Ferrymen, who these two teams ended their regular phase season up against each other, and now will have to face off for one final time here in the playoffs before they get sent over into Masters themselves. And that means for the Jade Dragons, they'll be facing off against one of their divisional opponents for another chance over on the losers end of the bracket, because we still got one more set today to go. It'll be the Atlantis Leviathans and the Gilded Gladiators in yet another best of 5 to round our day out.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one. The Gilded Gladiators are starting to build up a little bit of momentum. Feels like this is going to be a very important match for them. The Leviathans have not had the untouchable phase that maybe some of their fans would have projected for them. Now that Shinto's back, they've been doing very, very well for themselves. Significant strides and improvements out of the mid lane. But Gilded Gladiators with momentum. Leviathans just now starting to get some wind in their sails. Feels like this is one that could be a phenomenal heat check for the rest of the year. I'm excited to watch it.
Yeah, I think everybody should be excited, and everybody should definitely stick around because that set is coming up just after this break, so make sure that you stick around. We got the Gladiators and the Leviathans coming up next.